Lunar Forward Command. This is the single-soldier reconnaissance ship, Yunlong mooring Bay 108, requesting authorization for a space jump. Yunlong. This is the Huaxia 7th Fleet Lunar Forward Command. Taxi to the outer edge of Orbit 03 and stand by. Qin Feng pushed the thrust lever forward, guiding the Yunlong to glide slowly toward the outer edge of Orbit 03. Once the ship was in position, he pressed the yellow hold button, then gazed through the canopy at the beautiful azure planet on his left. This should be yet another routine reconnaissance mission, just like the previous 43. Lunar Forward Command. Yunlong has reached the outer edge of Orbit 03 and is standing by. Yunlong mission details have been transmitted. Please receive. Lunar Forward Command. Mission received. Mission coordinates Centaurus sector planet B63C. Objective surveillance and reconnaissance of a mining planet occupied by interstellar pirates. Yunlong mission has been verified and approved. Orbit 03 is cleared for space jump. Qin Feng retrieved the space jump checklist and, following it point by point, began a series of operations. He initiated the auxiliary engines, activated the star map navigation, powered up the space jump device, brought the energy shield online, and so forth. He checked each instrument reading, confirmed the status of the antimatter energy cells, verified the onboard intelligent program, inspected the life support system, tested the multi-band quantum communication signal, and confirmed the escape system's readiness. After completing all 25 checklist items, Qin Feng gently pushed the thrust lever to maximum and called out to Lunar Forward Command. Lunar Forward Command. Yunlong is departing the lane and about to initiate space jump. Yunlong, farewell. Lunar Forward Command. Farewell. As the Yunlong speed increased, the space jump device engaged, and the space ahead began to warp and bend. From the perspective of the Lunar Forward Command's control deck, the Yunlong shot forward faster and faster, growing more distant and ever brighter until its radiance reached a blinding peak, and then vanished like a single droplet, dissolving into the still surface of a lake. As Lunar Forward Command continued guiding the next starship into the approach lane, a sudden frantic distress call burst into their ears. Mayday, mayday, Yun, ship, static, black hole, static, mayday. Yunlong. This is Lunar Forward Command. Report your position. Yunlong. Lunar Forward Command calling. Yunlong. Lunar Forward Command calling. Yunlong. Fleet Central Command. This is Lunar Forward Command. Yunlong has disappeared from the star map and is unresponsive to all calls. Requesting activation of emergency rescue protocol. Lunar Forward Command. This is the 7th Fleet Central Command. Immediately initiate Level 1 incident response and launch emergency rescue procedures at once. We interrupt this program with breaking news. Moments ago, a single-soldier reconnaissance ship suffered a trajectory deviation during a space jump. Preliminary investigation indicates the cause was the sudden accelerated collapse of the supermassive red supergiant JW931 into a black hole. At present, the Central Aviation Authority, the Federal Space Agency, and the Euro-American Space Agency have all suspended civilian space jump authorizations. We will continue to follow this story and bring you further developments. What does it feel like to fall into a black hole singularity? Qin Feng's mind ached as he tried to recall what had just happened. At first, it had been just a normal space jump. A load exceeding 13 GS was merely mildly uncomfortable for a Level 2 genetic warrior like him. However, starting from the 4th second inside the wormhole corridor, the path that should have been straight began to curve. As a so-called veteran rookie who had completed 228 space jumps and carried out 28 reconnaissance missions, he had never encountered anything like this. He called out, "Mayday," at the very first moment, but no response came. Soon at the end of the curved wormhole, he saw a scene he would never forget for the rest of his life. A red supergiant star collapsed into a black hole at a speed visible to the naked eye, the entire collapse process lasting only a few seconds. The Yunlong's jump trajectory happened to pass right by this newly formed black hole. He watched helplessly as the Yunlong plunged headlong into it and plummeted at tremendous speed toward the event horizon. He had thought the terrifying gravity of the black hole would tear him to shreds, and indeed, he saw the Yunlong, and even his own hands stretched and twisted without limit. The static in his ears vanished in an instant, as if he had suddenly gone deaf into absolute silence, and his consciousness froze at that moment. He did not know how much time passed before a barrage of shrill alarms exploded in his ears. Groggy, he looked outside to see the Yunlong transformed into a ball of fire plunging toward a dense forest below. Beep, 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 beep. Main engine damaged, reverse thrusters damaged, energy shield successfully deployed. Impact posture, impact posture. 3, 2, 1. Even with the buffer of the energy shield, the massive impact of nearly 30 tons of hull slamming into the ground hurled the already dazed Qin Feng back into unconsciousness. Grandpa, Grandpa, come quickly. There's actually a person inside this iron thing. A grimy little girl nimbly climbed onto the Yunlong, and peering through the cockpit glass, saw a man inside wearing strange armor. She waved vigorously at an old man behind her who carried a medicine basket on his back, then pressed herself once more against the glass to look inside. Silly girl, get down from there at once, watch your step, the old man panted as he caught up. The wretched girl had claimed to see a shooting star the previous night and insisted on going into the mountains today, but he had never imagined she would actually find such a strange iron thing. The little girl tapped curiously on the glass and, finding it extremely hard, pulled out the small herb shovel tucked at her back and swung it against the window. With a crisp clang, the glass remained unscathed, but a laser cannon as thick as an arm rose from the top of the Yunlong, a tiny red of light settling on the girl's body. At the same time, an alarm sounded inside the cockpit. Warning, warning, Yunlong is under hostile attack. Awaiting instructions, engage counterattack. No response detected. Yunlong will commence self-defense counterattack in 10 seconds. 10-9. Qin Feng faintly heard the distinctive alarm that only sounded when the Yunlong was under attack. Hearing that sound, he forced himself to endure the severe vertigo and struggled to open his eyes. The first thing he saw was a little girl with wheat-colored skin, utterly unaware of the danger about to befall her. Overjoyed, she was shouting to her grandfather, "Grandpa, he moved, he moved. Counterattack imminent, counterattack imminent." Qin Feng suddenly snapped, fully awake, and enduring the agony tearing through his body, shouted, "Stop. Ceasefire." "Yes, sir." The laser cannon retracted back into the hull. Qin Feng laboriously removed his aviation helmet and gulped in great breaths of air, his eyes bloodshot from the overload. He was still in a muddled, hazy state. The extreme overload of passing through the black hole had nearly taken his life, and the organs in his body had all suffered varying degrees of damage. Fortunately, he was a level 2 genetic warrior, his tolerance for physical stress and his healing capacity far surpassing that of ordinary people. Otherwise, he would already have become nothing more than a puddle of boneless flesh. He closed his eyes, trying to straighten out his chaotic thoughts as countless doubts rose in his mind. Where's this place? He remembered plunging into a black hole. So how had he ended up here? Just then, an old man carrying a herb-gathering basket climbed up as well. He leaned close to the glass and peered inside. Qin Feng watched him warily, his hand drifting to the pistol at his waist. Having lived over 100 years, the old man had seen many demons and monsters, but a strange iron creature and the person inside it were sights he had never encountered before. He grabbed the little girl's arm and urged in a low voice, "Come on, let's go. That guy looks like trouble." The little girl shook her head. "Grandpa, he fell from the stars. Does he know my parents?" The old man had no time to argue. He tugged her down from the ledge. "That's just a story. Your parents died long ago. They never became stars." The little girl was stunned as she was dragged away. She murmured, "That can't be. I dreamed of them the day before yesterday. They said they live on the brightest star where there are no bad people and they eat white rice every day. They said they'd come for me soon." Her voice faded, tears welling in her eyes. The old man glanced back uneasily and was startled. The iron monster's skull had lifted open and the strange man inside was climbing out. The old man looked around nervously and shielded his granddaughter behind him. "Hey, don't come any closer. I've practiced martial arts." Qin Feng was completely bewildered, unable to understand a word the old man said. It sounded like gibberish. He pressed the back of his head, activating the artificial intelligence chip implanted there. Xiao Meng, enable intelligent translation." "Yes, master." Intelligent translation was a technology that interpreted meaning by monitoring the other party's brainwaves and voice prints. It achieved real-time translation by altering the user's own voice print. Originally developed for communicating with alien species, it was later adapted for pet communication. In simple terms, when chatting with a pet dog, your ears would hear barks as human speech while your own voice would be converted into barks. This technique was not very effective when first translating a completely new language. It felt like artificial stupidity. Translating brainwaves was 70 technology and 30 guesswork. "Sir, please don't be afraid. I'm not a bad person. I'd like to ask you about this place." To Qin Feng, this world was completely unfamiliar. The frail old man and his granddaughter were the perfect guides to learn about it. However, the intelligent translation, dubbed artificial stupidity, transformed Qin Feng's standard Mandarin into something the old man heard as, "Old fellow, don't scare me. I'm not a good person either. Come over, I have questions for you." From his years in the mountains, the old man knew that facing even the fiercest beast, you must not show fear. Once you cower or run, death is almost certain. Bluffing might drive the enemy away. Now this young man of unknown origin and seemingly injured and weak made the old man bolder. He pulled out his herb sickle and shouted with forced calm, "Young man, I didn't grow up being scared. I used to be the militia leader of our village. I've seen all kinds of monsters. Empty-handed as you are, you might not be a match for me." Through the artificial stupidity's translation, Qin Feng heard, "You little brat, I wasn't raised on fear. I used to be a bandit chief. I've killed more people than you've seen. One swing of my sickle and it'll chop off both your hands." The old man had only meant to bluff, but the translation turned it into a direct threat. Qin Feng's expression grew serious. He hadn't expected such fierce customs here. He subtly reached for his pistol. The old man, growing more agitated, waved the sickle as if about to attack. Seeing the old man step forward aggressively, Qin Feng drew his gun without hesitation and fired a warning shot into the ground beside him. The Q-type high-energy particle gun in Qin Feng's hand was standard military equipment. A pigeon egg-sized antimatter battery could fire 300 shots of superheated or supercooled particle beams. Its power was considerable. The superheated beam could penetrate a meter-thick steel plate, while the supercooled beam could instantly freeze 3 cubic meters of water. With a deafening roar, a small mushroom cloud rose slowly. A pit of fiery molten rock appeared on the ground about the size of a wash basin with a bottomless black hole inside. The old man never imagined this young man would be an immortal who could wield magic. For a moment the old man was petrified. Recalling legends of immortals' unpredictable tempers and tendency to slaughter entire villages, his legs gave way, and he knelt to the ground. "Immortal, spare me. This old man had blind eyes and offended you. I beg your forgiveness." After initial self-learning and adaptation, the artificial stupidity's translation was now fairly accurate. Just then the little girl suddenly stood in front of her grandfather, glaring angrily. "Bad guy, don't you bully my grandpa." The old man quickly pulled the girl into his arms, trembling as he cried out, "The child doesn't understand. Please don't be angry, immortal. I apologize on her behalf." Seeing the old man about to kneel again, Qin Feng moved like a phantom, crossing dozens of meters in an instant. He caught the old man's arm, preventing him from bowing. "Sir, please don't be afraid. I really am not a bad person. I just want to ask about this place." The artificial stupidity had improved rapidly. This time the translation was very accurate. The old man was confused. "You said you weren't a good person, now you say you're really not a bad person. What's going on?" Still, he realized this young immortal didn't seem vicious. Otherwise, he'd be dead already. It looked like he and his granddaughter would survive. "Immortal, ask whatever you wish. He'll tell you everything I know." "Old man, what kind of world is this? Are there dangerous places? Terrible monsters?" This time the old man understood every word, but his interpretation was somewhat skewed. From his perspective, the immortal asking such questions was clearly heading toward dangerous places, probably seeking legendary treasures in forbidden zones. So he pointed east and said, "Immortal, about 1,000 li east is a forbidden land called the 10,000 Flames Hell. Many immortals go there every winter in search of legendary treasures." Qin Feng was baffled. What nonsense was this? Still, he gathered from these words that this world seemed to have immortals. "Elder, you mentioned that many immortals descend each year. Have you witnessed them with your own eyes? Are they truly formidable?" At this, the little girl raised her hand and said, "I have seen them, I have. Some ride clouds and mist, others soar on flying swords. With a single gesture they can shatter mountains and split the earth, a sight both awe-inspiring and thunderous. Yet their temperaments are not as gentle as yours, yet the slightest offense they slay without hesitation." The old man added, "In truth, there is an elder Han in our village who once served as a menial and cauldron attendant to the immortals for half his life. The herbs we gather in the mountains are all delivered to him. If you seek knowledge, you may consult him. He knows far more than I." The old man was shrewd indeed. Uncertain whether this celestial being was truly benevolent, he sought to divert the potential trouble elsewhere. If even Elder Han could not handle this immortal, then they would have no choice but to resign to their fate. Yet from what he knew, Elder Han had also stepped onto the path of cultivation. Within his Niwen palace, he had refined a gleaming golden flying sword capable of taking lives from 100 paces away. Qin Feng absorbed the information they provided, his mind on high alert. This world seemed fraught with peril. He must tread with utmost caution. He turned to glance at the Cloud Dragon. This massive vessel, over 10 meters in length, lay stranded due to an engine malfunction. Even with the repair robots, it would take at least 10 days to fix. Rather than wait idly, it seemed wiser to follow the old man and his granddaughter to the village and investigate the situation here. Of course, he would not venture alone. The Cloud Dragon, a single-ship reconnaissance vessel, was equipped with a biomimetic general-purpose robot, a biomimetic reconnaissance mechanical dog, and a swarm of hive drones. He planned to bring the mechanical dog and the hive drones. With the dog's combat capabilities and the drone's early warning system, he should be able to handle most dangers. "Big Yellow Cloud Eagle, follow me. Little Dragon, stay here and handle the repairs." As Qin Feng's words fell, the side hatch of the Cloud Dragon opened, activating one man, one dog, and one Cloud Eagle. Little Dragon appeared indistinguishable from a human save for the faint blue glow in his eyes, which gave him away. Big Yellow was a massive dog, a meter tall, resembling a golden retriever, capable of reconnaissance, combat guard duty, carrying loads, and even riding. The Cloud Eagle was a composite drone. Its mothership, a biomimetic Cloud Eagle with a wingspan of 30 centimeters, could circle at altitudes of thousands or even tens of thousands of meters, serving as an early warning aircraft. Within its body were 100 bee-sized miniature drones used for reconnaissance, early warning, suicide attacks, and defense. When the old man saw that there were people inside this iron monstrosity, and as Little Dragon glanced at him, he quickly bowed and scraped, offering a greeting. But Little Dragon ignored him and busied himself with his tasks. The Cloud Eagle spiraled upward, releasing 30 bees that dispersed to gather all information within a 500-meter radius. A faint glow lit up in Qin Feng's eyes. The three-dimensional map constructed by the Cloud Eagle and the bees appeared on his retina, perfectly overlaying the real world. Living creatures, snakes, insects, forest birds, squirrels, ants, were all highlighted. The larger the creature, the brighter the glow. Dangerous snakes and scorpions were marked in red as warnings. Qin Feng swiped his hand in front of him, reducing the transparency of the three-dimensional map to its minimum so that only the highlighted targets remained visible, ensuring his vision was unobstructed. Big Yellow wagged his tail and bounded over joyfully, circling Qin Feng. The little girl exclaimed in delight, "What an adorable Big Yellow dog!" Hearing this, Big Yellow panted and shook his head as he approached the little girl, allowing her to rub his head. Seeing how much the little girl liked Big Yellow, Qin Feng smiled and said, "You can ride on his back." Big Yellow obediently lay down, signaling for the girl to climb on. The girl looked back at her grandfather, who was covertly watching Qin Feng's expression. When her grandfather paid her no mind, the little girl ignored everything else, climbed onto Big Yellow's back, and hugged his neck tightly. Big Yellow's back automatically contoured slightly to give the little girl a more secure and comfortable ride. Then he stood up and dashed off in a burst of joy. The little girl let out a startled yelp at first, but when she realized she was sitting steadily and in no danger of falling, her cry turned into a joyful laugh. "Elder, let's head to your village and take a look." The old man craned his neck to watch Big Yellow darting through the woods, his voice laced with worry. Although there aren't any powerful demons nearby, mountain cats and leopards often prowl these parts. If they run wild like that, they'll easily stir up trouble with those beasts. Walking side by side with the old man toward the village, Qin Feng asked curiously, "Elder, if there are wild beasts around, how dare you bring your granddaughter out here?" The old man sighed. "My fate is a bitter one. Both my sons died out there, leaving me and this granddaughter to eke out a living alone. If I don't risk my life gathering herbs in the mountains, we'd starve to death at home. I've lived here for most of my life. I know every blade of grass and every tree. I know which caves harbor wild beasts. I just stay far away. These creatures generally don't bother humans unless they're starving." Qin Feng listened thoughtfully. Up close, he noticed that the old man's body was covered in large bulging muscles, though they had atrophied with age. Still, it was clear that in his youth he had been a robust man. This was likely the old man's greatest asset for daring to take his granddaughter into the mountains to gather herbs. Just then a distant shout came from the little girl, "Grandpa, help. There's a big cat." A sharp, piercing cat screech followed, but it lasted no more than 2 seconds before falling silent. Qin Feng could see through the highlighted three-dimensional map that Big Yellow had swiftly dispatched 4 large mountain cats. The old man, unaware of this upon hearing his granddaughter's cry for help, drew his sickle and charged forward with a speed that kicked up a whirlwind belying his age and thinning hair. When the old man arrived at the scene, the little girl was sobbing, clinging to Big Yellow's neck. Big Yellow's muzzle was stained with blood, and the bodies of 4 adult mountain cats lay scattered around. Staring at the carcasses, the old man was inwardly stunned. Each mountain cat had been killed with a single bite to the neck, instant death. From the girl's cry for help to the silence, no more than 3 seconds had passed. In 3 seconds to bite through the necks of 4 mountain cats known for their agility. Could this Big Yellow dog be a demon that had attained sentience? No, this dog was the immortal's pet that might very well be a divine beast. The old man's gaze toward Big Yellow grew tinged with awe and reverence. "Child, come down now. It's over." The old man, somewhat fearful, lifted the little girl from one side. She buried her head in her grandfather's chest, tears streaming down her cheeks. Qin Feng caught up at that moment, deliberately pulling a chocolate energy bar from the pocket of his flight jacket. "Little girl, don't cry. Your uncle here has a tasty candy for you." The little girl lifted her head for a glance, then buried it back in fear. The old man let out a wry chuckle, took the unfamiliar immortal candy, and pressed it into the little girl's hand. "Quickly thank the divine uncle." The little girl took the candy and murmured a thanks barely audible. When Qin Feng winked at her, she promptly buried her head deeper into her grandfather's embrace. Fumbling in her grandfather's arms to figure out how to eat the candy, it took her a while to tear open the plastic wrapper. After taking a cautious little bite, her expression shifted to one of stunned disbelief. "Grandpa, try this candy. It's so delicious." "Haha, Grandpa isn't hungry, you eat it yourself." "Grandpa, just one bite. It's truly amazing. I've never tasted anything so good." At the little girl's insistence, the old man broke off a small piece and tasted it. His face also registered astonishment, and he mused inwardly that this divine candy was indeed extraordinary, though he wondered if it might extend one's lifespan or boost one's inner force by 60 years. Qin Feng watched as the little girl, after letting her grandpa have a small bite, carefully stowed the energy bar close to her body. "Little girl, didn't you say it was good? Why aren't you eating more?" The candy, however, made the little girl feel much closer to Qin Feng. "Divine uncle, can I save it to eat slowly later?" Qin Feng couldn't help but feel moved by how mature and endearing she was. He took out another bar and handed it to her. "It's yours now, you decide. Here, take another one. Don't be stingy with yourself." "Divine uncle, you're so kind." Not like what Grandpa Hans said. What did Grandpa Hans say? He said that deities have no feelings and treat ordinary people like ants. taking life and property at will. Ahem, child, don't speak nonsense. The old man hastily cut off the girl's words, knowing that appearances could be deceiving. He feared that one careless remark from the child might offend this divine being, so it was better to be cautious. The little girl's words, however, quietly stirred a sense of caution in Qin Feng. If he went directly to find this Mr. Han, given Mr. Han's wary and disdainful attitude toward deities, he wouldn't get the answers he sought. Instead, he'd expose his ignorance, eventually arousing suspicion or even murderous intent. This Mr. Han had once served as a menial and alchemy boy for deities, likely possessing some hidden trump card. Originally, Qin Feng had planned to seek him out directly, but now it seemed he couldn't rush. He would have to proceed step by step, taking his time. The trio and the dog ambled back unhurriedly. Qin Feng chatted with the old man and the girl the entire way, gleaning a wealth of information from the sidelines. For instance, the old man was named Yang Huaiyan, and his granddaughter was Yang Dai. Yang Huaiyan's ancestors had also served as menials in immortal sects, learning a set of external martial arts from the immortals. Only in his later years did he return to his ancestral home, marry, and build a modest legacy. By Yang Huaiyan's generation, the family was still well off in the village. Unfortunately, both his sons were determined to join the immortal sects. The elder died early on the road to the sect, while the younger son, after a few years in the city, sent him a granddaughter and then vanished without a trace. Rumor had it he stole something from an immortal and was beaten to death in the streets. As Yang Huaiyan recounted this, Yang Dai climbed onto Big Yellow's back again. This time the dog didn't run wild, but walked ahead of the two men. Afterward, Qin Feng learned from Yang Huaiyan about some peculiarities of this world. For example, the days were incredibly long, 36 hours, mostly dawn and dusk, while the nights lasted only 12 hours. The night sky had no moon, but was filled with colorful seven-colored stars. Qin Feng racked his brain, but couldn't imagine what kind of planet this was with such bizarre sunrises and sunsets. Additionally, a year consisted of 182 days divided into 4 seasons of 45 days each. What astonished Qin Feng most was Yang Huaiyan's mention of a substance called spiritual energy in this world. Those who could absorb it were the deities, in Yang Huaiyan's words. Xiao Long scanned the atmospheric composition of this world. Qin Feng pressed the biochip behind his head and issued a command to the Cloud Dragon. Soon the Cloud Dragon sent the data via quantum communication to the chip behind his head, which then projected it onto his retina. Commander, preliminary scan shows atmospheric composition: nitrogen, 75. 2 oxygen, 23. 1 water vapor, 0. 65 carbon dioxide, 0. 04 unknown gas, 0. 01. Xiao Long analyzed the properties of this unknown gas. Please wait. Commander, this gas is not on the periodic table. Spectral analysis indicates it is chemically relatively inert, reacting with only a few elements at room temperature. Preliminary assessment: non-toxic and harmless. More detailed data requires a specialized laboratory for experimental analysis. Qin Feng tried to extract more information about spiritual energy from Yang Huaiyan. The old man spoke at length, but to Qin Feng's ears it all sounded utterly absurd. In Yang Huaiyan's description, spiritual energy was like a panacea. Humans who absorbed it could achieve immortality and develop various supernatural powers. Animals that absorbed it could cultivate into demons, some even taking human form indistinguishable from ordinary people. Plants that absorbed it could transform into spirits or become heavenly treasures and immortal herbs. Yang Huaiyan made his living by gathering spiritual herbs from the mountains. He knew this forest well and knew where the finest herbs grew. Qin Feng couldn't help but ask, if absorbing spiritual energy grants immortality, why don't you absorb it and cultivate to become an immortal? Yang Huaiyan sighed. One must possess a spiritual root within the body to retain spiritual energy. Those with spiritual roots are 1 in 10,000. My granddaughter and I are ordinary people without such roots, so we cannot cultivate. Qin Feng remained somewhat skeptical. Rather than accepting such fantastical explanations, he preferred to verify them through scientific means. But that would require a fully equipped laboratory to obtain accurate data. The trio and the dog walked through the forest where Qin Feng, a scout who had visited over a dozen alien planets and witnessed all sorts of bizarre creatures, found the strange life forms here utterly fascinating. Perhaps because of the spiritual energy, the stems and leaves of the plants emitted a faint luminescence, giving the scene a dreamlike quality. When they passed by a cave, its dark interior was covered with glowing green algae, and deep within that green glow, a bright red light shone. Yang Huaiyan glanced at it, paused, briefly hesitated, then continued walking. Qin Feng noticed the detail and asked, "What's wrong? Is there something inside?" Yang Huaiyan looked at the cave again and explained, "Inside that cave grows a very rare red fruit that seems about to ripen. But a giant anaconda guards it, rumored to be nearly 1,000 years old and likely already a spirit. Better not to provoke it." Qin Feng nodded without a word, not even deploying a bee drone to scout the cave. Rounding the mountain, the path twisted and turned, and the view suddenly opened up. Between the undulating green mountains in the distance, a river flowed down from the horizon, winding along the terrain its uneven riverbed creating 9 waterfalls of varying sizes. The little girl Yang Dai introduced to him. That mountain range is called the Kanglan Mountains, and that river is the Nine Falls River. At the end of the river lies the sacred Tianjin Mountain. Qin Feng pointed to a town by the river in the distance and asked, "Is that Shilin Village?" Yang Huaiyan shook his head. "That's Linjiang Town. Shilin Village is further down." Following Yang Huaiyan's gesture, Qin Feng looked down the mountain to a rocky valley nearby, filled with simple stone huts built against the boulders. The Cloud Eagle released 30B drones which flew toward Shilin Village, and data was soon transmitted back. The village had 32 houses currently occupied by 47 people, all elderly women and children, with only 5 able-bodied men and women. Through the real-time footage from the B drones, Qin Feng saw a 2-courtyard compound in the center of the village. In the yard were over a dozen drying racks with baskets full of various herbs. 2 young alchemy apprentices with hair buns were turning the herbs with strainers. The B drones attempted to fly into the rooms to investigate, but when they reached 5 meters above the yard they collided with an invisible air wall and could not enter. Qin Feng quickly instructed the hive to avoid the area lest they alert those inside. Fear stemmed from the unknown. This air wall further confirmed the existence of some supernatural force in this world. The plan to visit Mr. Han would need to be approached with greater caution. On the way down the mountain, Yang Huaiyan pointed to the 2-courtyard compound. Immortal, that is Mr. Han's residence. He should be home now. Qin Feng waved his hand. Elder Yang, I haven't prepared anything this time. Visiting empty-handed might not be welcome. I think we should come another day. Also from now on, just call me Qin Feng. Don't call me Immortal. Please keep my origins a secret, Elder Yang, and don't reveal them. Yang Huaiyan nodded knowingly. Rest assured, Immortal, this old man's lips are sealed. I won't go around gossiping. If anyone asks, they'll say you're a distant relative from the city who wants to spend a few days in the mountains with me. Qin Feng nodded. Noticing that his aviation flight jacket was rather conspicuous, he activated the nano armor system and selected a black brocade robe of ancient style from thousands of clothing options. The black brocade robe was still too ornate and extravagant. He opened the customization feature, removed all the decorative embellishments and intricate embroidery, increased the wear and tear, and finally transformed it into a somewhat worn and yellowed black long robe. As he pressed the confirm button, the flight suit on his body shifted like layers of fine scales, and in a matter of seconds, it became a somewhat worn and yellowed long robe. Wow! Yang Dai happened to witness this and opened her mouth in astonishment. Yang Huaiyan turned his head at the sound and was startled. Immortal, when did you change your clothes? Qin Feng winked and put a finger to his lips. Sure, remember to keep it secret. And from now on, don't call me Immortal. Don't slip up. Yang Huaiyan caught on immediately and looked around cautiously before asking in a low voice. Then in front of others, this old man will dare to call you Xiao Qin, and in private he'll call you Mr. Qin. Is that all right? Fine, fine. Yang Dai chimed in. Then he'll call you Uncle Xiao Qin. Fine, fine. Qin Feng's arrival in Shilin Village caused quite a stir. The elderly at the village entrance spread the news far and wide that the Yang family had a young, handsome relative from the city. Before Qin Feng could even settle down at Yang's house, an elderly woman came to play matchmaker. My niece is gentle and virtuous, works as hard as any man, has wide hips for bearing sons, and just turned 16, ripe for marriage. Why don't you arrange a meeting for your relative? Who knows, they might take a liking to each other. Old Yang, why are you pushing me? Think it over. Old Yang, you've seen my sister's niece. She's not tall, but she's strong. She's been helping in the fields since she was 8 or 9. She'll be 16 in half a year. Why not mention it to your that one? Let the young folks meet. Hey, your niece's lifelong happiness depends entirely on you. One wave after another, the threshold of old Yang's house was never without visitors that day. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore and slammed the door shut. When those outside couldn't get in, a round of sharp curses erupted. Old Yang closed the door and nervously glanced at Qin Feng's expression. Seeing that he was still curiously inspecting the herbs drying at home and not angered by the commotion, he breathed a silent sigh of relief. These villagers mean no harm. They just want their children to have a stable life in the city. Qin Feng didn't mind and pointed to the herbs. Are all these herbs sold to Mr. Huh? Yes, the dried ones fetch a better price. Girl, go boil some water for your uncle. Old Yang went to the kitchen, grabbed a rag, and came back to wipe the table and chairs repeatedly. When he saw Qin Feng following him in, he looked a bit embarrassed. We haven't had visitors in a long time, so it's a bit dusty. The chair is clean now. Please have a seat. Qin Feng sat down looking tired, while Da Huang curled up at his feet. In truth, this crash landing had taken a toll on his body. He had been in a very weak state, and after walking for over an hour on the mountain path, his energy gave out as soon as he sat down. He slowly dozed off in the chair. Old Yang rambled on while wiping things, but when he turned and saw Qin Feng asleep, he immediately fell silent. After rummaging around in the inner room for a while, he quietly slipped out. He went to the kitchen where Yang Dai was boiling water and handed her half a string of copper coins. Girl, go to Mr. Han's and borrow some new millet, then buy 2 pheasants from Hunter Zhang's. Yang Dai took the money and was about to run off, but old Yang grabbed her. Tell Xiao Zhang to butcher the chickens first, so the noise doesn't wake your uncle Xiao Qin. Got it, Grandpa. As soon as Yang Dai stepped out, she saw a group of elderly women sitting across the way. They surrounded her, immediately asking about Qin Feng. Girl, what relative is this? We've never seen him before. Is he really from the city? What does his family do? How old is he? Yang Dai snapped, stop pestering me. Uncle Xiao Qin is already married and his child is 2 years old. Ah. The elderly women were dumbfounded. They exchanged glances and then dispersed in disappointment. Qin Feng had no idea how long he had slept. When he awoke again, the sky was still bright, and old Yang was outside turning over medicinal herbs while Yang Dai sat on the doorstep scratching at the ground with something in her hand. He glanced at the time displayed on his biochip. He had slept for a full 15 hours. Rising to his feet, he walked behind Yang Dai and discovered she was practicing writing characters on the ground with a pebble. The script of this world was still incomprehensible to him, somewhat resembling the ancient bronze inscriptions of Earth. You can write. Where did you learn? Startled, Yang Dai turned and saw Qin Feng awake. She quickly scurried to the kitchen and brought out the chicken soup and white rice simmering in the pot. Uncle, you must be hungry. I saved this chicken soup just for you. As she spoke, Qin Feng noticed her throat bob as if she were tempted by the aroma of the soup. Have you eaten? We have. Qin Feng was indeed somewhat hungry, but before eating, he tossed a piece of meat from the bowl to Da Huang. The dog caught it in one gulp and then lay back down on the ground. If the food were poison, Da Huang would have raised an alarm. Now it seemed there was no problem. It wasn't that Qin Feng distrusted them. He was merely being cautious. If they were truly sincere toward him, he would not let them down in the future and would repay them 1,000-fold. Seeing Qin Feng toss such a fine piece of meat to Da Huang, Yang Dai bit her lower lip, feeling a pang of regret. Noticing her expression, he guessed what was on her mind and asked while eating, where did this chicken come from? Yang Dai twisted her fingers and replied, Grandpa gave me money to buy it from Hunter Zhang. Qin Feng paused slightly and asked no further, shifting the topic back to the writing he had seen earlier. I saw you writing with a pebble at the door. Can you read? Where did you learn? I only know my own name. Mr. Han taught me. Do you want to learn? Huh. Learn what? Knowledge, language, math, chemistry, physics. I don't know. What are those for? Child knowledge changes your destiny. Do you want to spend your whole life in these mountains, marry young, have children, and only know how to wash clothes and cook? With knowledge you can do what you want and decide your own fate. Qin Feng seemed to see a spark suddenly ignite in Yang Dai's eyes. Uncle, I want to learn. Will you teach me? Yang Dai knelt with a thud, tears glistening in her eyes. She didn't fully understand what she could gain, but she wanted to take control of her own destiny. Good. This bowl of chicken soup shall be your apprenticeship tea. From now on, don't call me uncle. Call me teacher. Teacher. Yang Dai called out teacher respectfully, her young voice carrying a note of unwavering determination. Qin Feng did not show his emotions openly, but he felt genuine joy. He had known this girl for only a short time, yet in that brief half-day, he could see a person's true nature. When faced with a formidable enemy, Yang Dai had stepped forward, shielding her grandfather with her fragile body. This was loyalty and courage. When confronted with delicious food, she chose not to hoard it, but willingly shared it with her grandfather. This was pure-hearted innocence. Throughout their journey, she showed the vitality of a child and the cleverness of an articulate mind. Individually, these traits might not stand out, but together they revealed a rare and precious character. Qin Feng helped Yang Dai to her feet, patted her on the head, and sat back down to finish his meal. Meanwhile, the Cloud Eagle drone, following his instructions, flew to the Cloud Dragon to retrieve spare biochips and contact lenses. Since the space pirates possessed electromagnetic bombs that could damage biochips and contact lenses, the Cloud Dragon's shielded compartment held 10 full sets of backups. Now he could give one set to Yang Dai to facilitate teaching her Earth's knowledge. Before the meal was finished, a Cloud Eagle descended from the sky and flew into the living room, carrying a lunchbox-sized titanium-shielded case in its beak. After swallowing the last mouthful of rice, Qin Feng took the case. The Cloud Eagle then flew out of the room to resume its sentry duty. Come here, child. It might sting a little. Though she didn't know what her teacher intended to do, Yang Dai bravely stepped forward, instinctively trusting that he would not harm her. Qin Feng opened the shielded case, which had 4 layers. The first layer contained a pair of disposable medical gloves and a small bottle of disinfectant. He first picked up the disinfectant and sterilized his hands, the surrounding area, and the back of Yang Dai's head. Then, donning the disposable gloves, he opened the second layer, which held a small scalpel, surgical forceps, and a nearly transparent biochip as thin as a cicada's wing. It will hurt a little. Bear with it. Teacher, I'm not afraid. Seeing Yang Dai's trembling legs, Qin Feng smiled, picked up the scalpel, and made a small incision on the right side of the occipital bone at the back of her head. Before blood could seep out, he quickly used the forceps to pick up the biochip and place it over the wound. The biochip seemed to come alive, burrowing beneath the skin. Qin Feng opened the third layer, took out gauze to wipe away the blood, and then applied a healing patch over the wound. Pulling the tab on the healing patch, the wound was disinfected and sealed. The medicinal agents in the patch also alleviated pain and accelerated healing. It could be removed after about an hour. Does it still hurt? Teacher, it really doesn't hurt at all. Qin Feng smiled and opened the fourth layer, which contained a bottle of eye drops and a pair of contact lenses. He instilled the eye drops into Yang Da's eyes, waited a few seconds, and then helped her put on the contact lenses. All right. Any questions? Qin Feng removed the medical gloves, placed them on the table, and asked with a smile. Yang Dai couldn't help touching the spot on the back of her head where the chip was and rubbing her eyes. Teacher, what was all that for? Qin Feng pressed the chip at the back of Yang Da's head, and a blue light immediately lit up in her eyes. A vast amount of information was downloaded from the Cloud Dragon, transmitted through the biochip, translated in the hippocampus, and stored in the cerebral cortex as long-term memory. For children on Earth, learning anything required only downloading and decoding the data, allowing them to master hundreds of hours of coursework in mere tens of seconds. Of course, this was equivalent to memorizing all the knowledge by rote. To truly understand and master it, one still needed to put in effort and contemplate deeply. Qin Feng didn't decode too much information for her, just the compulsory subjects for elementary school children on Earth. This was enough to eliminate any communication barriers between him and Yang Dai, and to make her a reliable little assistant. Yang Dai stood still, her eyes having closed at some unknown moment. After about 10 minutes, she suddenly took a deep breath and awakened from the memory decoding. She gazed blankly at her surroundings, feeling as though she had experienced a long, long dream in which she sat in a bright and spacious classroom listening to a teacher's lecture. She felt as if she had learned a great deal, yet now her mind was a blank slate, unable to recall anything. Qin Feng, as if seeing through her confusion, gently rubbed her little head and said, "It's normal. This is short-term memory loss caused by rapid neuronal growth. Get some rest, and after a good sleep you'll be fine." However, looking at Yang Da's frail and gaunt frame, Qin Feng shook his head. "But you've been malnourished for too long. You need to take in enough nutrients." Qin Feng turned to Da Huang and said, "Da Huang, go up the mountain and catch a few pheasants to help the child regain her strength." Da Huang barked once, agilely scrambled to his feet, and dashed toward the door. With the courtyard gate still closed, he leaped, clearing the tumter-high wall, and sprinted up the mountain. Throughout that long afternoon, Yang Dai had a full meal and fell asleep early. The neurons in her brain still needed time to stabilize. In her dreams, Yang Da's mind was still filled with the voices of teachers lecturing. Like a parched desert, she greedily absorbed knowledge from another world. Meanwhile, Qin Feng was also rapidly acquainting himself with this world. Old Man Yang, already 106 years old, possessed an endless trove of extraordinary tales and strange events. Though Qin Feng couldn't discern how much was truth and how much was hearsay, these stories helped him sketch a rough outline of this world in his mind. However, to obtain more detailed and profound information, all clues pointed toward that Mr. Han. Perhaps because he saw Qin Feng take his granddaughter as a disciple, Old Man Yang dropped much of his guard and even honestly shared many secrets he knew. Seeing that Qin Feng intended to visit Mr. Han, Old Man Yang whispered mysteriously, "In his early years, Mr. Han worked as a menial servant for immortals at a celestial sect. It started smoothly. He landed the sweet job of an alchemy apprentice. But that stirred jealousy among the other servants, leading to endless scheming, false accusations, and plots. It drove Mr. Han paranoid and suspicious, seeing everyone as a potential threat. If you visit him directly, he'll be polite on the surface, but won't open his heart. You'll get nothing out of him. I see you're quite capable. Why not join me in gathering some rare herbs from the mountain and sell them to Mr. Han? After a few dealings, you'll become familiar, and then when you ask him questions, he'll find it hard to refuse." Yang Huaiyan had his own hidden agenda in this suggestion, but Qin Feng didn't call him out on it, as the plan was beneficial to him with no downsides, also offering a chance to learn herbal gathering skills and experience. "Old Yang, you're right. How about we head into the mountains first thing tomorrow morning?" Qin Feng's words struck a chord with Old Man Yang, as it was exactly what he had in mind. With Qin Feng's capable assistance, those precious herbs he had longed to pick but dared not approach finally seemed within reach. Even a small share of those herbs would be enough to secure him a comfortable old age. Old Man Yang cheerfully picked up the washed and dried straw mat, laying it out for Qin Feng in the inner room. He and his granddaughter slept on the earthen floor of the main hall, with a simple layer of straw beneath them. Even so, Qin Feng couldn't sleep that night, bothered by the hard surface. Listening to the snoring from the next room, he quietly sat up, leaned against the wall, and a faint blue glow lit up in his eyes. The cloud eagle above the village, as if receiving some command, left only 10 bee drones for surveillance and flew toward the mountains. Once in the mountains, 90 bees fluttered their wings and emerged from the cloud eagle's belly, scattering into the forest. They seemed like a scattered mess, but under the cloud eagle's command, as an early warning aircraft, they formed an invisible net, compiling information from everywhere they passed. This information was filtered by artificial intelligence, and the most valuable data was transmitted back to Qin Feng's biochip. The mountain at night was far more lively than during the day as all kinds of beasts emerged playing their roles as predators and prey. Fleeting hunting scenes were recorded with clarity and precision like vivid nature documentaries. More intriguingly, in many nooks and crannies of the mountain faint glows appeared, signs of herbs rich in spiritual energy. The brighter and more saturated the glow, the rarer the herb. Of course, for such conspicuous herbs to survive the night, they must have their own means of survival. Some herbs were guarded by powerful beasts, others grew in crevices on sheer cliffs, and some released toxic fumes to repel approaching animals. Some of these scenes left Qin Feng deeply astonished. A troop of night macaques, red-furred monkeys, gathered outside the anaconda's cave they had seen during the day, throwing stones inside to deliberately provoke the serpent. Two bright green lights flickered from within the cave, accompanied by eerie hissing sounds. The macaques retreated in fear, but after a moment, sensing no danger, they gathered again. Among them, a macaque leader with unusually thick arms and a larger frame than the others grabbed a boulder the size of a wash basin, waiting for the right moment to hurl it inside. The boulder, weighing at least 500 or 600 Jin, was thrown as effortlessly as a sandbag. It flew with a whoosh, striking the anaconda's head and slamming it against the cave wall, blood streaming. This time the anaconda was enraged. It burst through the stones, charging out of the cave in a flash. Its head, as thick as a water bucket, opened a massive maw and bit down on a macaque in an instant. The macaque screeched in the anaconda's mouth before being swallowed. As the muscles in the serpent's throat contracted, blood spurted from its jaws, a horrifying sight. Most macaques fled in panic, but the leader climbed the nearest large tree and let out a couple of strange calls from above. The anaconda reared up and hissed at the leader, only to be met with another boulder the size of a wash basin. The stone struck true, hitting the anaconda's snout. Wincing in pain, the serpent was now fully enraged, coiling around the tree and chasing upward. Meanwhile, two small macaques sneaked into the cave, attempting to steal the divine fruit. Unexpectedly, a sudden change occurred. Two screams echoed from the cave. Other macaques couldn't see inside, but Qin Feng, through the night vision lens of a bee drone, spotted two more anacondas, as thick as thighs, lurking deep within, swallowing the two macaques that had come to their mouths. The macaque leader heard the screams and realized the plan had failed. With two howls, it leaped to another tree, swinging like a pendulum into the depths of the forest. The rest of the macaques followed their leader, scattering like a receding tide. The anaconda's fury was not yet spent. Watching the fleeing macaques, it tensed its body in rage, constricting itself into the tree. With a sharp crack, the tree, which would have taken two people to encircle, snapped in two. Qin Feng was taken aback by this sight. The anaconda's speed and strength had already reached the level of a 4th-grade Jin warrior in Earth's military. Relying only on high-energy particle guns and Da Huang would still be somewhat risky. Better not provoke this creature until the cloud dragon is repaired. Seeing no further activity there, Qin Feng turned his attention to other disturbances as various bloody scenes continually unveiled the harshness of nature. The next morning, Yang Dai gently woke her teacher. "Teacher, get up and have breakfast." Qin Feng sat up weakly. The night had been exceptionally long. The hard bedboard kept him awake. Just as he finally managed to fall asleep, the alarm from a fierce spirit beast attacking the cloud dragon woke him. When he connected to the cloud dragon and observed the scene, he saw two strange beasts resembling a mix of tiger and leopard, with half their bodies blown away by laser cannons. After raising the cloud dragon's alert level to maximum and granting it unlimited right of self-defense, Qin Feng lay back down, tossing and turning in insomnia. He drifted off again and dreamed of continuing his reconnaissance mission against space pirates. However, during the reconnaissance, he was discovered by the pirates, who launched a thrilling chase. Just as he was about to be captured, Yang Dai woke him. "Little girl, are you feeling better?" "Teacher, my head still feels a bit fuzzy." You're still malnourished. Let's go up the mountain today and see if we can catch a fish to nourish you. Eat small meals more often these 2 days and consume plenty of vegetables, fruits, and high-quality protein. "Teacher, I know Aunt Lee's cow just gave birth. How about I trade the pheasant we didn't kill yesterday for some milk?" Sure. From now on, I'll have Big Yellow catch some game every day. You can sell it for money and buy necessary daily supplies." "Teacher, is Big Yellow really a mechanical dog? Why does it look exactly like a real dog?" Big Yellow's mechanical skeleton is covered with a layer of liquid metal that simulates muscles, and its fur is made of the same nanomaterial as my clothes. "Teacher, are you a gene warrior? How many gene locks have you unlocked? You little rascal, let me at least brush my teeth and wash my face first. They'll tell you slowly during breakfast." Yang Dai chuckled sheepishly, then turned and ran out to prepare warm water for her teacher to wash up. Qin Feng hastily washed his face and rinsed his mouth, then returned to the living room. While eating, he began to answer Yang Dai's questions. "Your teacher here doesn't have much talent. I barely managed to unlock 2 layers of the gene lock. Teacher, you're too modest. I've heard that even unlocking 1 layer makes you a 1 in 10,000 genius." "Haha, that's not wrong. But the school I attended was full of geniuses among geniuses, which made my talent seem rather poor." "Teacher, what type of gene warrior are you? Strength type? Agility type? Or intelligence type? Agility type? Ah, tisk what a pity. You little brat, what are you pitying? Qin Feng laughed despite himself and tapped Yang Dai on the head. Yang Dai rubbed her head and made a pitiful aggrieved expression at Qin Feng. Don't give me that. What's wrong with agility type? It gets stronger later on, and after level 5 it's unmatched in unknown combat. Yes, 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 teacher, you're the best. Qin Feng was utterly speechless and even felt like ignoring her. Old Yang, watching his granddaughter bicker with Qin Feng, was immensely amused. Old Yang, I'm full. Let's go. All right, little girl, stay home and cook. We'll be back by noon. Qin Feng's eyes then sparkled with mischief, and he said to Yang Dai with a smile, Little girl, I've sent you from novice to master chef. Study it well at home. Yang Dai's face fell with bitterness. She also wanted to go up the mountain and didn't want to stay home cooking. Watching her grandfather and teacher leave, she sighed and began to receive the course. Qin Feng and Old Yang left the house and passed by Mr. Han's residence on the way. The gate was open and they could see Mr. Han inspecting the medicinal herbs laid out to dry. Old Yang greeted him. Mr. Han, have you eaten? Mr. Han looked out and seeing it was Old Yang smiled, just finished eating. Came out to turn the herbs. Oh, who's this young man? Haven't seen him before. He's a nephew from my younger sister's side. He's coming with me into the mountains to learn herb gathering. Oh, young man, study hard with your grandpa. Master it, and it'll set you up for life. By the way, Old Yang, are there any ghost hand vines on our mountain? I'm missing that ingredient for some alchemy lately, and I can't find it in town. Mr. Han, I do know where some are in the mountains, but that stuff is too dangerous. It's ruined many people. Just take me there. I know how to handle it. Mr. Han didn't delay and called inside. You two keep turning the herbs. The weather's unpredictable today. I don't let the rain soak them. A child's voice came from inside. Understood, master. The three of them thus entered the mountains. Along the way, Mr. Han chatted intermittently, with Old Yang asking about recent conditions in the mountains and Old Yang's chronic leg pain. Qin Feng and Big Yellow followed obediently behind them. When they passed the cave where the anaconda lurked, Mr. Han stopped, pointed at the red glow inside the cave and sighed. It seems this blood spirit fruit will ripen in about 10 days. What a waste of heaven's bounty. Qin Feng seized the moment to ask Mr. Han, why don't you find a way to harvest this blood spirit fruit? Mr. Han turned to look at Qin Feng and smiled bitterly. How could I have that ability? This anaconda is a spirit beast that has attained sentience comparable to a Qi refining realm cultivator. I've only learned some breathing techniques. I haven't even broken through to the innate realm. I'd barely be a toothpick for this anaconda. Mr. Han, let's hurry. If we linger, we might provoke that beast. Yang Huaiyan urged them to move on. Mr. Han cast one more reluctant glance at the cave before hurrying after Yang Huaiyan. Qin Feng digested the information from Mr. Han's words, then caught up and asked Mr. Han, what does Qi refining realm mean? Mr. Han explained, that's a term used by immortals to describe cultivation realms. If a person can draw Qi into their body and refine that spiritual energy into true Qi for their own use, they are called a Qi refining realm cultivator. Is drawing Qi into the body difficult? This question touched a sore spot for Mr. Han. He fell into contemplation, then sighed after a long while. Difficult as ascending to heaven. Countless nobles and generals have sought it in vain. I once had the fortune to glimpse a fraction of it, but I was constrained by my shallow spirit root. After 100 years of bitter cultivation, I could advance no further. Qin Feng heard the term spirit root again and could no longer restrain his curiosity. He pressed on, what exactly is a spirit root? How can one know if they have one? Mr. Han turned back and looked at him seriously, then sneered, since you can ask such a question, it means you don't have a spirit root. Those with a spirit root naturally know what it is. With that, he shook his head. Young man, I know what you're thinking. I advise you not to dwell on it. Your fate was sealed the moment you were born. Qin Feng felt displeased and asked flatly, what fate? Mr. Han paused in his steps, sneering, it's like the grass on this mountain. Some are born as celestial herbs and immortal plants destined for a bright future without lifting a finger. As for you, you're nothing but weeds on the ground. No matter how hard you strive, you'll only be slightly more flourishing weeds. Destiny is paramount. It's better to realize this sooner rather than later. With these words, Mr. Han paid no further attention to Qin Feng. As he passed Yang Huaiyan, he asked in a low voice, this man isn't a relative of yours, is he? Yang Huaiyan glanced awkwardly at Qin Feng at a loss for words. Mr. Han understood in his heart. If he were truly a rustic fool, how would he dare speak to him like that? His affability was merely a moral self-requirement, but if anyone dared to be disrespectful, he would make them understand the meaning of reverence. After all, he was once among those closest to the immortals. Qin Feng, educated in advanced technological civilization, believed in fairness, justice, and the triumph of human will over fate. He refused to accept the native doctrine of resignation. What he reflected on now was whether he truly lacked spiritual roots. According to Mr. Han, if he had them, he should have sensed something. However, paths are forged by walking. If no road lay ahead, he would find a way to blaze one. Mr. Han claimed it was as difficult as ascending to heaven, but Qin Feng saw no great challenge in reaching the sky. At the age of 3, his parents had taken him on a space elevator to outer space for his birthday, and his journeys into space had since become countless. Ascending to heaven was something the people of this world could not achieve, but that did not mean he could not. Once the Yunlong was repaired, not only ascending to heaven, but even interstellar travel would be within reach. The tense atmosphere was abruptly shattered by a brown bear charging out of nowhere. The bear froze at the sight of the three, then turned to flee. "Mr." Han gently raised his right hand, as if plucking an invisible string. A golden sword light shot from his sleeve, instantly piercing the bear's skull. A spray of blood bloomed. The bear didn't even have time to whimper before it stumbled and collapsed into the earth. Having done this, Mr. Han casually withdrew the sword light, casting a sidelong glance at the dumbfounded Qin Feng. Inwardly he gloated. This was the proudest achievement of his life. Though his spiritual roots were shallow, he still possessed a trace. It was insufficient to guide qi into his body or refine true qi, but it allowed him to stir some spiritual energy for his use. His Xinjin sword, nurtured with blood and soul, required little spiritual energy, enabling him to wield the means of a cultivator. At this moment, Qin Feng was indeed stunned. This was utterly beyond his comprehension, resembling the divine arts of immortals. Yet Qin Feng was a staunch atheist. He dismissed notions of gods and Buddhas, determined to unravel the mystery and ultimately harness this wondrous power for himself. He also assessed Mr. Han's combat capability. The speed and power of the sword light rivaled a heavy sniper's armor-piercing bullet. Though his nano-armor was bulletproof, he wasn't sure it could withstand this strike. "Mr. Han, look at that shaded valley ahead. I've seen ghost hand vines there." As they crested a ridge, the view expanded. Yang Huaiyan pointed to a valley below and began to explain. Mr. Han, aware of the ghost hand vines' danger, surveyed the area and finally fixed his gaze on the yellow dog. "Old Yang, let your dog scout ahead." Yang Huaiyan hesitated, looking uneasily at Qin Feng. "Don't worry, it won't die. If it does, I'll compensate you." "Mr. Han," urged impatiently. Qin Feng, expressionless, called out to the dog, "Da Huang, scout ahead. Be sharp." "Woof, woof." Da Huang wagged its head, barked twice, and obediently took the lead. The trio and the dog headed toward the valley. A cloud eagle circled overhead, while all 100 bee drones deployed, forming a vast net that enveloped the entire valley. Before they even entered the valley, Qin Feng spotted several peculiar plants resembling human hands in the real-time footage transmitted by the bee drones. The ghost hand vine resembled a human hand, dark green in color with a hole in the center of its palm. As the ghostly hand swayed, it emitted a yellow mist with a fragrant scent that could bewilder the mind. A yellow finch, foraging carelessly, inhaled the mist. Its eyes turned crimson instantly, and it flew dazedly toward the vine. The vine shot out with lightning speed, seized the bird, and dragged it underground. Through the bee drone's life-form detection, Qin Feng discovered a fleshy sac 2 to 3 meters long underground, the true body of the ghost hand vine. The protruding ghost hands were merely its branches. The sac contained strong acid, and the fate of anything dragged inside was obvious. Apart from this bizarre vine, the valley also harbored a monster marked in blood red. It was a creature with a body like a dog, but a green-faced, fanged human visage. Its physique was robust, muscles bulging beneath cyan skin. A large patch of flesh was torn from its tail area, the wound festering with pus and blood, a ghastly sight. This human-faced canine demon seemed to have fled from afar, curled up in a cave, licking its wounds. As the trio stepped into the valley, the ghost hands in the forest, as if sensing their presence, all retracted underground. Yang Huaiyan searched around and quickly took a few steps to pick several stalks of herbs. The ghost hand vine releases a toxic mist that clouds the mind. This heart-clearing herb is mildly poisonous, but can counteract the vine's mist. "Let's each chew a few leaves, Gaitill last 2 or 3 hours. Qin Feng took the herb, put it in his mouth, and chewed. It tasted somewhat like mint, but his lips and tongue tingled slightly. Yang Huaiyan picked a few more leaves to feed Da Huang, but Mr. Han stopped him. "Don't feed it." Though Mr. Han didn't say it outright, Yang Huaiyan understood his intent. He wanted the dog to inhale the mist and lead them to the ghost hand vine. Yang Huaiyan was in a bind. He couldn't afford to offend either party, but he leaned slightly toward Qin Feng, who was his granddaughter's master. Qin Feng grew increasingly wary of Mr. Han, but maintained a carefree smile. "With Mr. Han here, Da Huang will be fine." Yang Huaiyan subtly signaled Qin Feng, who pretended not to notice and instead took the lead. Mr. Han, feeling uneasy, scanned the surroundings, sensing they were being watched by some terrifying creature. Watching Qin Feng and Da Huang ahead, he deliberately slowed his pace, ready to retreat at any moment. A wave of fragrant aroma swept over as a faint yellow mist drifted from deep within the valley. Yang Huaiyan pointed towards the direction of the yellow mist and shouted, "Mr. Han, it should be right ahead." Mr. Han's feeling of unease grew stronger, beads of sweat formed on his forehead, and the yellow light at his fingertips flickered restlessly. All right, everyone, be a bit more careful. Don't rush so fast. Qin Feng glanced back at Mr. Han, who was nervously looking around, and quietly approached Yang Huaiyan, whispering, "Stay close to me in a moment." Yang Huaiyan was confused, but nodded nonetheless. From Qin Feng's perspective, a monster with a human face and dog body had stealthily approached from behind the group, its red eyes glowing with a desperate need for food. It had a slight limp in its hind legs, its face contorted in pain with each step, yet it remained silent, steadfastly following its prey ahead. However, the monster startled a squirrel, which upon seeing the creature scurried up a tree in fear. Mr. Han sensed the commotion behind him, his eyes narrowing, and yelled ahead, "Don't rush so fast, it's dangerous up ahead. Let me clear the path for you." Qin Feng seemed not to hear, quickening his pace instead. Yang Huaiyan laughed, and said, "I think I see the ghost hand vine, it's right there." Saying this, he hurried a few steps to catch up with Qin Feng. At this moment, Yang Huaiyan had also sensed the aura of danger. Though unsure of its source, he chose to trust Qin Feng. Seeing that the two were not only not stopping, but actually speeding up, Mr. Han grew anxious and chased after them. This caused the monster behind to think it had been exposed, and immediately launched an attack. Mr. Han noticed a ghostly shadow lunging at him, fright gripping his heart, and instinctively unleashed a sword light towards the apparition. The sword light was indeed powerful, but as Mr. Han had not cultivated his divine sense, he was unable to lock onto the enemy, making it very difficult to hit the fast-moving monster. However, the sword light startled the creature, which twisted in midair to evade it. Taking advantage of the monster's dodge, Mr. Han gathered his energy and fled forward. At this moment, he noticed that Qin Feng and Yang had already run quite far away, which filled him with anger. With the monster's speed being so fast, even with his inner strength, it was difficult for him to outrun it. If someone could fill the monster's belly, he might just escape with his life. As the saying goes, if a friend dies, the Taoist does not perish. He pointed ahead, and a bright yellow sword light shot out from behind, heading straight for Yang Huaiyan. A scream echoed. Yang Huaiyan's legs were severed by the sword light, and the upper half of his body fell to the ground, rolling a few times. Qin Feng turned to look back at the fallen Yang, filled with shock and anger. At this moment, Mr. Han had caught up and saw Qin Feng. He immediately pointed at him. The yellow sword light traced a semicircular arc in the air, shooting urgently towards Qin Feng. As Qin Feng dodged the sword light, he quickly drew his gun and counterattacked. The sword light struck his left shoulder with tremendous force, sending Qin Feng flying at an angle. However, before the sword light reached him, he fired 3 shots, the 3 beams of cold white light shooting out. One of the bullets hit Mr. Han, while the remaining 2 struck the monster that was charging from behind. All of this happened in an instant, and as the gunfire rang out, everything fell into silence. Enduring the intense pain in his left shoulder, Qin Feng climbed up from the ground. At this moment, Mr. Han had already turned into an ice sculpture, still holding his hand, pointing at Qin Feng. The monster behind him had not been hit, and had vanished from sight. However, Qin Feng was aware of its location. At least 10 B drones were monitoring the area closely. After Qin Feng fired the 3 shots, the monster, startled, instinctively retreated into the forest, now lurking in the shadows, closely watching Qin Feng. Qin Feng did not engage it in a staring contest. He quickly rushed to Yang's side. Yang had already lapsed into a state of hypovolemic shock and needed immediate rescue. He pulled out a palm-sized emergency medical kit from his pants pocket, first administering adrenaline to Yang, then took out a medical gun the size of a lighter and sprayed a cold mist over the 2 severed wounds. The cold mist not only contained components for disinfection, sterilization, hemostasis, and pain relief, but also included a growth liquid to accelerate wound healing. Yang's bloody wounds quickly formed scabs, stopping the bleeding and temporarily averting a life-threatening situation. Qin Feng also retrieved Yang's severed legs and applied the cold mist for hemostasis and scabbing. Meanwhile, the monster that had been closely monitoring Qin Feng could no longer contain itself. It crawled up behind him, leaping from 10 meters away, pouncing towards him. At the same time, the large yellow dog that had been following Qin Feng leaped into the air, lunging at the monster mid-flight. The 2 collided in the air and landed entangled in a fierce struggle. Qin Feng did not pay attention to the battle. Based on his previous calculations, the monster's speed and strength were inferior to that of the large yellow dog. With the dog's chrome alloy skeleton, liquid metal muscles, and nanotech armor, they were on completely different levels. Thus, Qin Feng was not worried about the battle at all. He supported his left shoulder and walked towards Mr. Han. Just before Mr. Han had launched a sword strike, and although the nanotech armor had blocked it and prevented it from piercing his left shoulder, the immense impact had caused his shoulder bone to dislocate, accompanied by a broken collarbone. Before Qin Feng could reach Mr. Han, a scream from the monster echoed from behind as the large yellow dog, during their tussle, extended a mechanical blade from its abdomen, stabbing the creature with a frequency of 30 times per second, turning half of its body into a honeycomb. Qin Feng merely glanced back before arriving in front of Mr. Han. At this close distance, he could see more clearly the sinister and frantic expression on Mr. Han's face. The ultra-cold particle beam as a non-lethal weapon operates similarly to human cryogenic techniques, instantly freezing the target to 230 degrees, forming an amorphous ice state that does not expand or crystallize. After being thawed with special equipment, the frozen target can fully recover its bodily functions. Qin Feng checked Mr. Han's frozen state, confirming its solidity, then moved to the spot where he had been struck using the bee drone's detection to pull a 3-inch blade from the soil. The blade resembled a willow leaf lacking a hilt, crafted from a thin yellow soft jade, yet extremely sharp. What material is this? How fascinating. Qin Feng looked around, and after a moment placed it into a titanium alloy box in his jacket pocket. Half an hour later, Qin Feng carried the ice sculpture on his right shoulder, while Da Huang bore Old Yang on his back as they arrived at the Cloud Dragon. Above the Cloud Dragon, a makeshift camouflage net woven from leaves had been set up and 5 laser turrets stood erected around it. Any creature daring to approach would first be dispersed by an electric light. If it failed to leave within 3 seconds, it would suffer a fatal laser strike. By now, the entire Cloud Dragon had been disassembled by Xiao Long into 5 cabin modules, 7 major functional modules, and a pile of parts. Xiao Long was busy repairing the main engine module. Seeing Qin Feng return, Xiao Long stepped forward and asked, "Sir, is there anything I can assist with? Thaw this man out and place him under maximum security confinement." "Understood, sir." Having said this, Qin Feng lay down in the disassembled multifunctional cabin, which also served basic medical functions, more than enough to treat his dislocated left shoulder and fractured collarbone. Mr. Han was sent by Xiao Long into the confinement cabin. Before thawing, Xiao Long implanted a biological confinement chip into the back of Mr. Han's head. With this chip, not only could his control over his body be severed, but he could also be forcibly awakened or put into forced sleep at any time. During future interrogations, the chip could also perform lie detection and other less humane functions. Meanwhile, Da Huang sent Old Yang into the medical cabin for emergency treatment and a limb replantation surgery. The medical cabin of the Cloud Dragon was a level 3 small-scale unit. Though it couldn't compare to the large hospital-grade cabins capable of cell-level limb regeneration, the replantation surgery for a well-preserved severed limb produced nearly identical results. In essence, within 10 days to half a month at most, he would recover to his pre-injury state. An hour later, Qin Feng slowly regained consciousness. He moved his left shoulder, still feeling some numbness and ache. The fractured collarbone had been reset and fixed. As long as he avoided heavy lifting or severe impacts, it wouldn't be a major issue. Xiao Long, seeing Qin Feng emerge from the multifunctional cabin, reported, "Sir Prisoner, no. One has been fully thawed and can be awakened at any time." "How is that old man now?" "He's still in the medical cabin undergoing nerve suturing, but it's estimated to take another 2 hours to complete." "Good. Connect Mr. Han's consciousness to the virtual space. I'll interrogate him there." "Yes, sir." Qin Feng found a rest cabin, lay down, and pressed the chip behind his head. Xiao Ming established a virtual space. The virtual space was a world built using virtual gaming technology. Conducting interrogations there offered many advantages. First, it prevented the subject from fighting back. Second, it stopped them from self-harm or suicide. Third, suitable scenarios could be simulated to reduce interrogation difficulty. Fourth, consciousness could be reset for repeated probing. Within this virtual space, Qin Feng held supreme authority, making the interrogation remarkably effortless. Qin Feng's vision brightened as he entered a world of virtual grid lines. With a few casual settings, the scene transformed into Mr. Han's courtyard in Sherlin Village, and he himself became an herb-turning apprentice. Loading prisoner no. One's consciousness. Ding, loading successful. Master, wake up. Mr. Han groggily opened his eyes, gazing at the young Xiaoku before him with a trace of confusion. "Xiaoku, what's wrong?" "Master, you said you'd teach me the breathing technique today. Have you forgotten?" Mr. Han stared blankly, pondering. When did I ever say I'd teach you the breathing technique?" Xiao Ke's expression vanished, turning icy cold as he said, "Xiao Long, reset the target's consciousness." "Master, wake up." "How, what is it, Xiao Ku?" "Master, you said you'd teach me alchemy today. Have you forgotten?" I only know how to concoct medicine myself, not alchemy. How could I teach you that?" "Reset consciousness." "Master, wake up." What is it, Xiao Ku?" "Master, you said you'd teach me herb concoction today. Have you forgotten?" "You want to learn herb concoction? Have you memorized the 100 Herbs Canon by heart?" "Reset." "Master, I want to learn the 100 Herbs Canon. In this world, there are countless herbs classified by quality into mortal, profound, spirit, immortal, and divine tiers. This 100 Herbs Canon records only 800 relatively common herbs, 795 mortal tiers, 64 profound tier, and 7 spirit tier." After Mr. Han finished his lengthy explanation, he took out a yellow cloth bundle from his bosom containing 3 yellowed scrolls. "Reset. Pause." Qin Feng then paused the interrogation and exited the virtual space. "Xiao Long, search him." Soon Xiao Long brought over the yellow cloth bundle that Mr. Han had kept close to his body. Inside were indeed 3 ancient scrolls. The embarrassing part was that Qin Feng couldn't recognize the characters. Interrogate again. Qin Feng scanned the 3 ancient scrolls and took them into the virtual space to question Mr. Han. For hours later, Qin Feng had painstakingly extracted the meaning of every single character on the scrolls from Mr. Han. These 3 ancient scrolls were the 100 Herbs Canon, the Heart Sutra of Qi Absorption, and the 5-Pill Manual. The 100 Herbs Canon documented the effects of various herbs and their mutual interactions, concluding with over 100 small prescriptions compiled and verified by Mr. Han himself. The Heart Sutra of Qi Absorption was a breathing technique comprising 3 chapters: the postnatal breathing method, the prenatal breathing method, and the Qi induction method. Yet after 100 years of cultivation, Mr. Han still struggled with the postnatal breathing method, unable to break through even to the prenatal stage. The 5-Pill Manual recorded the refining methods for 5 types of pills: blood essence, pill Qi absorption, pill spirit nourishing, pill spirit awakening pill, and spirit cultivation pill. This pill formula was actually something Mr. Han had secretly memorized while serving as a pill boy. He couldn't actually refine them himself, only knowing roughly the effects of these 5 pills. Legend held that the essence of those immortals' cultivation lay in essence Qi, and spirit essence being the vitality of flesh and blood, Qi being true energy and spiritual essence, and spirit being the soul and primordial spirit. Thus the corresponding pills were the blood essence pill, Qi absorption pill, and spirit nourishing pill. What truly intrigued Qin Feng were the spirit awakening pill and spirit cultivation pill. According to Mr. Han, the spirit awakening pill had the effect of awakening spiritual roots. Children without spiritual roots had a chance of developing them after taking the pill. The spirit cultivation pill could nurture one's spiritual roots and enhance their grade. However, the probability of the spirit awakening pill generating spiritual roots was very low, and the success rate decreased with age. It was best taken before the age of 3. The effects of the spirit cultivation pill were also inconsistent. Some experienced noticeable benefits, but for most, almost no effect was observed. Perhaps I can use modern biopharmaceutical methods to try to analyze and extract the active ingredients from these medicines. Thanks to the power of artificial intelligence, the new drug development process, which used to take over a decade, can now be completed in just a few days with AI-assisted research. However, 2 prerequisites remained. First, he needed to procure this herb, otherwise even the most advanced AI would be powerless without the necessary materials. Second, he had to establish a modern laboratory, as much of the data depended on such a facility. As for herbs, although Mr. Han's estate has plenty, it lacks the specific ones needed for refining the spirit awakening pill and the nourishing spirit pill. Those profound tier herbs are far too precious, so he'll need to think of another way. The laboratory isn't a problem. I can modify a batch of robots for mining and construction. With the existing equipment on the Cloud Dragon, it won't take long to build a fully functional base. As Qin Feng pondered solutions, he casually flipped through the herbal canon. Suddenly 3 characters caught his attention. One's Mr. Han had mentioned before: blood spirit fruit. Blood spirit fruit, a profound tier herb. Sweet, bitter, and astringent, neutral in nature. Toxic. Enters the lung and kidney meridians. Usage: take 2 qian of blood spirit fruit, soak in rootless water for 1 day, remove, rinse with warm water. Grind 7 qian of earth essence and 9 qian of ghost hiding into a paste, add 3 sheng of rootless water and decoct into a cream. Take 1 qian daily with boiled water. Efficacy: marrow cleansing and sinew transformation. Marrow cleansing and sinew transformation. Qin Feng remained skeptical about such a transformation, unsure whether it referred to the mundane kind that merely induced diarrhea or the legendary one that brought about a complete rebirth. Yet he reconsidered: this world was vastly different from the one he knew, so perhaps such claims might indeed hold true. Regardless of its efficacy, the blood spirit fruit was still a profound tier herb. If he could cultivate it on a large scale, he could sell it or trade it for the profound tier herbs needed for the spirit awakening pill and the nourishing spirit pill, thereby solving the problem of sourcing herbs. However, the blood spirit fruit was currently under the tight protection of a giant python. To obtain it, he would have to wait until the Cloud Dragon was repaired. Qin Feng sorted through the myriad of tangled threads in his mind. The most pressing matter remained the Cloud Dragon. Only after it was repaired could he act freely and turn his ideas into reality. A series of chimes rang out. A voice call request from Yang Dai. Qin Feng answered. What's wrong, little one? Teacher, when are you coming back? I've made you chicken soup and steamed some rice. It smells delicious. Something unexpected happened here. I'm sending Big Yellow to pick you up. He'll explain when you arrive. Fearing that Yang Dai would lose control upon learning of her grandfather's injury, Qin Feng decided to bring her over before explaining. Though this place was a wilderness protected by the Cloud Dragon's full weapon system, it was far safer than the village. Moreover, the bed in Yang's home was unbearably uncomfortable, making sleep impossible, far less restful than lying in a recovery pod. Teacher, what happened? Where's my grandfather? Your grandfather is fine, don't worry. Bring all the food from home, we won't be returning for a while. That's it for now. I'm hanging up. Qin Feng ended the call and sent Big Yellow to fetch Yang Dai. He then picked up a breathing technique manual to study. Following the instructions in the Heart Sutra of Qi Absorption, the postnatal Qi absorption method of the first chapter, combined with the intelligence he had gleaned from Mr. Han, he sat cross-legged palms, facing upward, forming the seal of embracing unity. He regulated his breath in harmony with the universe, each inhale and exhale causing his primordial Qi to circulate. After about an hour before Yang Dai's return, Qin Feng felt relaxed and comfortable during the breathing exercises, yet he could not sense the presence of spiritual energy at all. "Teacher, what are you doing? Where's my grandfather?" Qin Feng slowly opened his eyes and let out a long breath. "Little one, your grandfather had a minor surgery. He's in the medical pod receiving 4 fluids and should wake up soon." Qin Feng first calmed Yang Dai down, then recounted the day's events in full detail. Having prepared herself mentally, Yang Dai only had slightly reddened eyes upon hearing that her grandfather's legs had been severed, and she did not burst into tears. After learning the whole story, she went to the medical pod and peered through the glass at her grandfather, who was still receiving fluids. "Teacher, I want to do something to help you." Seeing the sincerity and earnestness in Yang Dai's eyes, Qin Feng actually remembered a task that required her assistance. "There is indeed something I need you to do." "Teacher, what is it?" "Next, I need to find a cave to establish an underground laboratory. You'll need to raise some lab mice for biological drug experiments. So you must start cultivating the mice now. I'm sending you the relevant knowledge, please receive it." Yang Dai naturally knew what lab mice were used for. Despite her instinctive fear of the small creatures, she mustered her courage and said, "Master, leave it to me. Breeding wild mice in a qualified lab mice is quite troublesome. That multifunctional pod can serve as a temporary experimental chamber for you to cultivate them." Qin Feng sent Yang Dai the courses on lab mouse cultivation and instructed Big Yellow to catch mice. Yang Dai absorbed the lessons diligently. When Yang Huaiyan was wheeled out of the medical pod, he saw his granddaughter in a sealed experimental chamber, wearing a protective suit, deftly grabbing a large rat with her left hand, while holding a syringe in her right, injecting it with a pale yellow liquid. After each rat was injected, it was paired with an opposite-sex rat for breeding. Meanwhile, Qin Feng sat on the floor, palms facing upward, a steady snort emanating from his nostrils. Seeing Qin Feng asleep, Yang Huaiyan did not disturb him. Instead, he looked down at his trousers, which had been reduced to shorts, and fell into deep thought. He distinctly remembered Mr. Han severing his legs with a single sword stroke. The excruciating pain seared into his memory. Yet upon waking, his legs were completely restored. If not for the faint red ring around the wound, he would have almost believed he had never been injured. Truly divine methods beyond belief. For the girl to have become the disciple of immortal Qin is a blessing accumulated over 8 lifetimes. Filled with curiosity about the divine artifacts, Yang Huaiyan looked around only to be scolded by Xiao Long. "Don't touch anything." Yang Huaiyan quickly clasped his hands in apology. The commotion awakened Qin Feng, who smacked his lips, wiped the drool from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand, and looked at the furtive old man. "Ahem, old Yang, you're awake. How do you feel? Any stinging or soreness?" Seeing Qin Feng awake, Yang Huaiyan scurried over to the immortal. "I'm fine, completely fine. I've heard legends of immortals bringing the dead back to life and regenerating flesh from bones, but I never quite believed it. Today I've witnessed it with my own eyes. Truly miraculous. Don't move so much. Your wound has just healed and needs rest. I have a spare pod here, you can sleep in it from now on." Qin Feng taught old Yang how to use the spare pod, and the old man was full of astonishment. "I've lived most of my life and never slept on such a soft bed. But this room is a bit small. Oh, I keep bumping my head when I sit up." The long 10 days passed swiftly in a flurry of activity. On the 3rd day after the cloud dragon was fully repaired, they set out for a natural stalactite cave that had been previously surveyed. Under Qin Feng's leadership, Little Dragon and Big Yellow transformed into bricklayers, commencing the renovation and construction of the stalactite cave. In just 3 days, a new home was completed, comprising 5 laboratories, 3 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen. The furniture, all crafted from stone and wood, included tables, chairs, benches, beds, cabinets, and desks, everything one could need. Each of the 3 bedrooms was equipped with an en-suite bathroom, with the cloud dragon supplying clean water and a pumping system, while wastewater was channeled into a tank for harmless treatment. Security for the stalactite cave was paramount. First, a 5-kilometer radius was placed under the surveillance sentry mode of B drones. Second, each of the cave's 3 exits was guarded by a laser turret. The cloud dragon was concealed beneath a layer of turf and buried within a mound atop the mountain. A tunnel was excavated from its base, leading directly down to the living room of the stalactite cave. In times of danger, Qin Feng and his companions could use a simple rope ladder within the tunnel to swiftly board the cloud dragon for a strategic retreat. Over the following 7 days, Little Dragon upgraded the 5 laboratories. The first laboratory was a smelting room, housing a smokeless smelting furnace powered by the cloud dragon's antimatter reactor. It could refine most high-purity metals and alloys. The second laboratory was Yang Dae's biochemical lab, primarily used for breeding laboratory mice. After 10 days of effort, the initial group of wild mice had reproduced for 10 generations, their genes gradually stabilizing. It was estimated that after another 10 generations they would cultivate mice with perfectly consistent genes suitable for experimental use. The third laboratory housed electronic instruments dismantled from the Cloud Dragon, including a spectrum analyzer, atomic detector, multifunctional chromatograph, and multifunction photometer. Due to the limited space aboard the Cloud Dragon, which made usage inconvenient, Qin Feng had no choice but to remove these instruments for practical application. The fourth laboratory was a plant growth chamber primarily utilizing space station technology to cultivate vegetables and fruits. It was used for the artificial cultivation of various melons, fruits, and vegetables, and would later be employed for growing medicinal herbs. The fifth laboratory was essentially a production workshop currently focused on manufacturing low-grade mining robots. The greatest challenge in building the bodies of these low-grade mining robots was the multifunctional mechanical arm. Given the current industrial conditions, producing high-quality qualified products was virtually impossible. While qualified products were difficult to make, Qin Feng could still churn out substandard ones, with slightly inferior performance, shorter service life, and a higher failure rate. Nothing more. These robot bodies could be used for simple tasks such as excavation, mining, transportation, and construction. The robot bodies were relatively easy to manage, but other components like various precision detectors, gyroscopes, and chips were beyond Qin Feng's ability to manufacture. They required a complete industrial system, which a small workshop could not provide. However, he had a solution. He directly installed 50 bee drones inside the robots. Though the bee drones were only the size of a peanut, they were fully equipped with AI chips, communication chips, multifunction detectors, gyroscopes, and microantimatter batteries. With the bee drones, the mining robots gained a heart and brain. Little Dragon then wrote a set of robot operation programs enabling the mining robots to perform various mining, construction, and transportation tasks. By the 8th day, the first mining robot successfully came off the production line after having its mechanical operation program installed. Qin Feng conducted a simple test before dispatching it to dig tunnels and extract or underground. Watching one ugly piece of industrial waste after another leave the production workshop, Qin Feng consoled himself. Difficulties are temporary. Bread will come, milk will come, everything will come. Qin Feng's optimism was not unfounded. Aboard the Cloud Dragon was a super AI chip which served as Little Dragon's server end. As long as this chip existed, even without any pre-existing data, it could advance a civilization from the Stone Age to a technological age through AI self-research. Moreover, the super AI chip stored a vast backup of data from the ARC project. This was a plan designed to ensure that any super AI device could restart human civilization in the event of its destruction. A plan Qin Feng had unexpectedly applied to a different world. By the 10th day, which was today at noon, a research report on the spiritual energy element was finally completed. As Qin Feng studied the report, his shock was palpable. The atomic number of the spirit element is 18, replacing the original argon element and possessing entirely new elemental properties. In its elemental form, it is a colorless, odorless, and tasteless gas with a relative atomic mass of 39,921. 18 isotopes have been detected, designated as Spirit 29 through Spirit 47. Among them, Spirit 33, Spirit 35, Spirit 38, Spirit 41A, and Spirit 47 are widely found in nature, while the other isotopes can only exist stably under specific conditions. What followed was a lengthy exposition of data models and AI simulations. Qin Feng skimmed through it, found it largely incomprehensible, and flipped directly to the last page to read the conclusion. In summary, it can be concluded that Spirit 33 should correspond to the fire element, as noted in the Qi Absorption Heart Sutra. Spirit 35 to the water element, Spirit 38 to the wood element, Spirit 41 to the earth element, and Spirit 47 to the metal element. Combined with research on herbs like ghost handvine, seven-star grass, and scrophularia, the existence of a spirit root has been confirmed. The spirit root is a specialized cell that produces various unique enzymes which are key to chemical and catalytic reactions with spiritual energy. Based on a simulation analysis of the Spirit Awakening pill, it is likely a certain compound that induces genetic mutation in the human body, thereby creating spirit root cells. This analysis lacks experimental data to support it and is for reference only. Qin Feng understood this conclusion. It essentially meant that as long as he gathered all the herbs for the Spirit Awakening pill, the Cloud Dragon could help him develop a drug capable of generating spirit roots, paving his way to greatness. Intrigued by the Spirit Awakening pill, Qin Feng checked Little Dragon's comments on it. The Spirit Awakening pill requires 29 herbs, 26 of the mortal grade and 3 of the profound grade. The 26 mortal grade herbs can all be found in these mountain forests. However, the 3 crucial profound grade main ingredients are completely absent. According to the pill formula, the 26 mortal grade herbs were merely supplementary materials meant to stimulate the effects of the main ingredients. The key lay in the three principal components. The three main ingredients were Earth Ganoderma, Azure Dragon Ginseng, and Cloud Sky Fruit, all exceedingly rare treasures of heaven and earth. Qin Feng pondered for a moment, then pressed the chip behind his ear. Xiao Ming initiate interrogation mode. Yes, master. Activating virtual space. Prisoner number 1 is being connected. Qin Feng initially intended to reset, but upon reflection, he realized that for the past 10 days Master Han had only received nutrient fluids, leaving his stomach empty. No wonder he was hungry. All right, master. Qin Feng hurried to the kitchen and prepared a bowl of chicken noodle soup in the virtual space. Watching Master Han devour the noodles ravenously, he asked again, Master, do you know where I can find Earth Spirit Fungus? Master Han rubbed his stomach. How could he still feel so hungry after eating such a large bowl of noodles? Hearing Xiao Ke's question, he replied casually, There's a ginseng and antler guild in Linjiang City that stocks various rare herbs, but the prices are exorbitant. You'd need at least 10 gold leaves for a Qian of low-grade Earth Spirit Fungus, and even 100 gold leaves might not secure a high-grade one. Why the sudden interest in Earth Spirit Fungus? Reset. Master, something strange happened. What is it? I just saw a bird fly over our courtyard, but it seemed to hit something, like the legendary ghost wall. Ghost wall. That's the 5-gate golden lock array I set up, composed of 5 tokens and a golden lock. It keeps birds and insects away from the herbs, and in critical times deters petty intruders. Then why can the villagers enter our home? You don't understand, do you? The 5-gate golden lock array comprises the life gate, death gate, shock gate, injury gate, and rest gate. Our courtyard gate is the sole life gate, allowing unimpeded entry and exit. Anyone who climbs the wall or breaks a window straying into the other 4 gates will face injury or death. That's why I tell you to lock the main door every night. Secure the only life gate and no one can enter this courtyard. Xiaoku, I'm hungry. Make me a bowl of noodles. Starve for now. But, Master, if I encounter villains during my travels and I have the power to kill them, but also the choice to give them a chance to reform, what should I do? Master Han fell into deep thought. Before long, he said solemnly, Xiaoku, you're still young and unaware of the world's treachery. If you ever face such a situation, I urge you to eradicate evil completely. Leave no room for future trouble. But what if the villain isn't truly evil and it's all just a misunderstanding? Don't overthink it. In this world, the strong prey on the weak and power reigns supreme. If you don't want to be backstabbed, I advise you to be ruthless. These are lessons I've learned through bloodshed over the past century. Seeing the growing cruelty in Master Han's eyes, the last shred of pity in Qin Feng's heart dissipated. Little did Master Han know he had just pronounced his own death sentence. Master Han, I've learned my lesson. You may rest in peace. Xiaoku, what nonsense are you talking? Wait, you're not Xiaoku. Who are you? Qin Feng exited the virtual space and ordered Little Dragon to swiftly extract and analyze Master Han's memories. Once done, he could cut off the nutrient supply. Initially, Qin Feng had wavered on whether to spare him, wrestling with the decision for a long time, which led to the questions above. As a modern person raised in a society governed by law, Qin Feng instinctively resisted taking another's life. But Master Han's response made it clear if he didn't kill this man, he would become a future threat. In this unfamiliar land, for him to survive, others had to die. Days later, Master Han perished and was buried in a distant valley by mining robots. A tale for another time. It seems lacking a spiritual root is truly a dead end. Qin Feng rubbed his drowsy eyes. Falling asleep every time he meditated was a major problem. However, the 26 mortal-grade herbs needed for the Spirit Awakening pill are easy to obtain. I can gather most of them in these mountains. But the 3 mystic-grade herbs are a rare find. I'll have to buy them in Linjiang City. But where am I supposed to get gold leaves? As a law-abiding citizen, Qin Feng dismissed many violent methods of acquiring gold leaves. He preferred to earn wealth through his own efforts rather than taking shortcuts at others' expense. Thus, he turned his gaze toward the direction of the anaconda's cave. The anaconda, bewildered, you're robbing me. Isn't that benefiting yourself at my expense? As the old saying goes, heavenly treasures belong to those destined to find them. No one can claim ownership just by staking a prior claim. The true owner is decided by ability. According to Master Han, the blood spirit fruit will ripen in a few days. If I don't act now, it'll be too late. Qin Feng resolved to seize the blood spirit fruit from the anaconda, or rather the fruit the anaconda had monopolized. If the beast surrendered it willingly, all would be well. If it proved obstinate, he would have no choice but to dispatch it on the spot, granting it a swift reincarnation. At midnight, Qin Feng took the elevator to the Cloud Dragon, entering the cockpit. He dutifully retrieved the checklist and began a series of pre-flight inspections. He started the main engine, activated the energy shield, powered up the full weapon system, and initiated. He checked all instrument readings, confirmed the status of the antimatter energy cells, verified the onboard AI program, inspected the life support system, and ensured the escape system was operational. Inspection complete. Ascending. Above a rocky mountain, the ground suddenly trembled violently. A massive fissure split the earth, rapidly expanding as a 35-meter-long pitch-black warship emerged from beneath. The warship rose slowly, its nearly translucent energy shield deploying swiftly to repel the surrounding soil and debris, which fell away with a soft patter. Qin Feng took full control of the flight system, activating combat mode. 3 black gun barrels emerged atop the warship, a Gatling laser emitter on the left, a particle-cutting ray in the center, and a shockwave generator on the right. Beneath the warship, a composite weapon turret extended, housing 5 heavy weapons, the weakest being a laser accelerator cannon and the strongest a gamma-ray burst. Additionally, 36 active defense particle array emitters were distributed across the warship's hull. Using such a modern military-grade, single-pilot warship against an anaconda was truly overkill. Fearing the battle might destroy the blood spirit fruit in the cave, Qin Feng opted for the shockwave generator, the least destructive option. The shockwave generator could emit a sustained directional high-energy blast typically used for clearing paths in asteroid belts and geological surveys, pushing aside asteroids or blasting craters on planetary surfaces to study their composition. When they said the shockwave's lethality was low, they meant against other warships. Against carbon-based life forms, it was still quite deadly. Qin Feng estimated that at maximum power, level 5, the anaconda wouldn't last a second before exploding into a mist of blood. A breach opened at the bottom of the cloud dragon, and Big Yellow leaped out, its limbs spreading wide as the nanoarmor formed a membrane of wings, aiding it in gliding through the air before it landed steadily atop the cave. Upon landing, Big Yellow crouched low, its nanoarmor adapting to the surrounding environment, creating a camouflage that blended seamlessly with its surroundings. The blinding white light startled the anaconda within, and unsure of what was happening, it hissed threateningly toward the outside. Qin Feng activated the shockwave at the first level, and a directional low-frequency shockwave compressed the air into visible ripples. The anaconda in the cave felt a piercing buzz in its ears, its flesh and blood vibrating violently, bones clattering with a rhythmic da-da sound. This sensation was excruciating, alternating between numbing tingles and sharp pain throughout its body. After enduring only a few seconds, the anaconda could no longer bear it and burst out of the cave, frantically searching for the enemy. Soon it fixed its gaze on the 2 brilliant eyes in the sky. The anaconda let out a series of chilling cries at the aerial foe, and from the cockpit Qin Feng could see its crimson maw and the 2 terrifying fangs. Qin Feng retreated, fearing the shockwave might damage the blood spirit fruit, so he feigned weakness to lure the anaconda fully out. But the creature, cautious and suspicious, did not pursue far and turned back toward the cave. Seeing this, Qin Feng had no choice but to increase the power, pushing the shockwave to the second level. In an instant, sand and stones flew across the ground like a raging storm, and the anaconda felt as if its skin and flesh were splitting apart, racked with agony. At that moment, the 2 young anacondas inside let out painful wails. Hearing their cries, the anaconda's fury ignited, unleashing a surge of bloodlust as it endured the searing pain and charged toward the enemy in the sky. Its massive body actually launched into the air, jaws gaping wide as if to devour the heavens. Yet as it closed and it slammed into a transparent barrier, the impact leaving it seeing stars with blood seeping from its mouth and nose. Seeing the anaconda airborne, Qin Feng immediately deactivated the shockwave, aiming to draw it farther away and create an opportunity for Big Yellow. The anaconda did not fall, but hovered eerily in the air. Shaking its head, it coiled around the strange transparent barrier as it had done with countless foes seeking to constrict until they were drained of strength and their bones shattered. Qin Feng smirked inwardly and deliberately shrank the barrier slightly, making the coil tighter. From the cockpit, he could see the layers of white scales on the anaconda's belly pressing fiercely against the barrier, emitting a series of creaking sounds. Once the anaconda was fully coiled, Qin Feng shot into the sky with it heading into the distance. Simultaneously, Big Yellow sprang from the ground and dashed into the cave. Big Yellow did not venture too deep, but stood at the cave entrance barking furiously. The 2 young anacondas, enraged that this mongrel dared to trespass, saw the larger one shoot forward like an arrow, intent on swallowing it whole. But Big Yellow moved with exceptional agility, dodging to the side, and defying gravity scurried up the rock wall, traversing the cave ceiling in a swift circuit before charging deep into the cavern. The other young anaconda lunged to bite the yellow dog as it entered. Big Yellow swayed to evade, but the larger one delivered a lightning-fast tail whip, sending it flying with a sharp smack. The direction of the blow sent it straight toward the gaping maw of the smaller anaconda. In an instant, the smaller anaconda clamped its jaws around Big Yellow. However, being only as thick as a thigh, swallowing it whole was a struggle, so it simply held on, refusing to let go. Suddenly, Big Yellow's fur melted away, dripping to the ground. The 2 anacondas stared blankly at the mercury-like liquid, baffled by what it was. The liquid slowly flowed toward the blood spirit fruit, and the larger anaconda snapped at it, but how could such a substance be easily caught? After several futile attempts, it could only watch helplessly as the liquid crept toward the fruit. The blood spirit fruit plant resembled a rose bush, with leaves glowing a tender green. The blossoms had withered, revealing bright red fruits radiating a luminous crimson light, each adorned with a five-colored sheen that cast a faint colorful halo around it. When the mercury-like liquid was 3 meters from the fruit, it suddenly twisted and reshaped into a miniature Big Yellow leaping toward the blood spirit fruit. As Big Yellow swept past, the entire plant was uprooted and absorbed into its body. Meanwhile, the young anaconda that had bitten into its chromium alloy skeleton felt a sharp pain in its mouth and released its grip. Big Yellow's skeleton flipped in midair, the blade-like ribs curving back into their original form. The moment it landed, the miniature Big Yellow merged into the skeleton, instantly reverting to its original shape, and bolted out of the cave. The two young anacondas gave chase, but as the dog exited the cave, a cloud eagle seized it and soared into the clouds in a flash. The entire sequence took only 7 seconds, and Qin Feng had not flown far. When he learned of Big Yellow's success, he immediately activated the shockwave at the 3rd level. In an instant, the anaconda was struck as if by lightning, its tightly coiled body going limp, unraveling in the air, before plummeting lifelessly to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Qin Feng aimed the cannon downward. Seeing the anaconda crash into the forest and go still, he ignored it and pulled the warship upward into the sky. As the warship pierced through the clouds, the lark flew Big Yellow inside, and the entire blood spirit fruit plant was promptly placed into a culture solution. With the mission complete, Qin Feng yearned to return home. He hoped to get back to the base and see if he could artificially cultivate the blood spirit fruit. Soon they returned to the base, and Qin Feng personally carried the blood spirit fruit sealed in a thin membrane off the ship. It was delivered to Lab 3, where Xiao Long performed a puncture sampling to analyze its composition. 3 hours later, a comprehensive data report reached Qin Feng. Skipping the lengthy experimental data, he went straight to the conclusions. 65 organic compounds have been extracted from the blood spirit fruit, 14 of which are correlated with spirit elements, while the rest include organic acids, vitamins, alkaloids, fruit red pigment, and phenolic compounds. The effects of the 14 spirit element compounds remain unclear and require biological testing for detailed data. After reading the report, Qin Feng found his earlier conjectures confirmed. Barely containing his excitement, he quickly instructed Xiao Long extract the 14 spirit element compounds and send them to Lab 2. I will conduct the biological tests myself. Over the following 13 days, Qin Feng and Yang Dai remained in Laboratory No. 2, conducting biological experiments on 14 spiritual element compounds. They not only verified the effects of these 14 compounds, but also analyzed the 73 compound combinations derived from the Yunlong, totaling 87 rounds of trials. Each round required 20 mice divided into 4 groups. The first group received an injection of 0.1 mg of the test solution, the second group received 0.3 mg, the third group 1 mg, and the fourth group 3 mg. After injection, the mice were observed and recorded every 30 minutes for 24 hours. Subsequently, they were dissected, samples were extracted for analysis, and one portion from each group was frozen for preservation, while the rest were sterilized and disposed of. The workload was immense. Without fully automated intelligent laboratory equipment, every step, injection, observation, recording, analysis, comparison, dissection, sample submission, and sterilization, had to be performed manually by him and Yang Dai. 87 rounds of trials, 348 tests, 6,960 mice. Apart from taking turns to rest, the two remained tirelessly busy in the laboratory. Initially, Yang Dai felt some discomfort with dissection, but gradually, she became numb to it, her movements as precise and mechanical as a robot on an assembly line. Qin Feng observed this with a pang of pity in his heart. After all, she was merely a child of 11 or 12 whose actual height and appearance, due to long-term malnutrition, resembled that of an 8 or 9-year-old. He had repeatedly told Yang Dai to go back and rest, but she would only return after drinking a glass of water, hurrying back. Qin Feng paused his work and scolded, "I told you to go to sleep. Why are you back so soon?" Yang Dai merely smiled naively and replied, "Teacher, I really enjoy this work. It makes me feel valuable, not a burden to you." Qin Feng was momentarily taken aback, then waved his hand and said, "Take care of yourself. This matter is not urgent. A day earlier or later makes no difference. Don't exhaust yourself." After 13 days of intense experimentation, their efforts finally paid off. They obtained all the necessary data, which was uploaded to the Yunlong, and a summary report was soon generated. Qin Feng lay back in his chair, closing his eyes in exhaustion, while Yang Dai eagerly read the report to him. "Teacher, the report is out. It states that compound No. 9 is the main active ingredient of the blood spirit fruit, named blood spirit saponin. It is primarily found in the fruit's pulp and can stimulate the bone marrow to generate a new type of blood cell, the blood spirit cell. These cells combine with spiritual energy in the lungs, transporting it throughout the body, triggering a violent chain reaction with all bodily cells. This reaction prompts genetic mutations in specific directions, achieving the so-called effect of marrow cleansing and meridian purification. Blood spirit cells can only be generated by blood spirit saponin and are consumed during the intense reaction. Thus, this reaction only occurs after consuming the blood spirit fruit, with a half-life of 36 minutes. Additionally, other compounds include blood spirit monosaccharide, blood spirit flavonoid, blood spirit volatile oil, blood spirit polypeptide, and blood spirit alkaloid. Among them, blood spirit flavonoid hormones can stimulate the brain to secrete a novel steroid hormone. Small amounts alleviate pain, while excessive secretion leads to extreme euphoria and auditory or visual hallucinations. Blood spirit polypeptide promotes physical and skeletal development, assisting the blood spirit cells in the chain reaction, thereby enhancing the marrow cleansing and meridian purifying effects of the blood spirit fruit. At the same time, caution is needed regarding the blood spirit alkaloid in the pulp. This alkaloid serves as a self-defense toxin in the fruit with a concentration as high as 35 before ripening. A dose of 0.1 mg can cause fatal organ failure in mice. After the fruit ripens, the alkaloid concentration in the pulp decreases to 0.0001. For an adult, consuming more than 10 fruits at once results in noticeable toxic reactions, and ingesting over 30 can reach a lethal dose. Wild blood spirit fruits have a low blood spirit saponin content, less than 1.2, even after ripening, with 70 of the saponin contained in the seeds, which cannot be directly absorbed by the human body. The seeds are extremely hard and contain a lethal dose of blood spirit alkaloid, so consumption is not recommended. In conclusion, gene editing technology can be used to domesticate and breed the blood spirit fruit. Preliminary estimates suggest that the blood spirit saponin content in the pulp can be increased from 1.2 to over 50, while knocking out the blood spirit alkaloid gene and amplifying the blood spirit polypeptide gene. This would eliminate the toxin from the pulp and enrich it with blood spirit polypeptide. Upon hearing this, Yang Dai couldn't help but exclaim, "Isn't gene editing technology incredibly powerful?" Qin Feng chuckled, "This is nothing. Given enough time, Xiaolong can calculate the artificial synthesis pathways for all compounds. But he's not a specialized experimental chip, and tasks requiring such high computational power are still challenging for him. Moreover, the equipment and materials needed for artificial synthesis are too extensive, and we lack the conditions. For now, we'll have to work hard and grow the blood spirit fruit the old-fashioned way." Yang Dai asked doubtfully, "But these Xian-grade herbs typically take decades or even centuries to mature. Even if we can grow them, what's the point?" Qin Feng laughed heartily. "It seems I need to quickly teach you the middle school, high school, and university curricula. The marvels of modern science are far beyond your imagination. In my world, vegetables and fruits grow by the hour. A watermelon seedling can produce a basin-sized watermelon in just an hour and a half, growth visible to the naked eye." With that, as if to prove his point, Qin Feng asked Xiaolong, "Xiaolong, what is the growth cycle of the gene-edited blood spirit fruit?" "Sir, due to current constraints, the growth cycle requires approximately 330 days in this realm." Yang Dai looked at Qin Feng in confusion. Although a 330-day cycle was astonishing compared to decades or centuries, it was still far from the hourly growth her teacher had mentioned. Qin Feng felt a bit embarrassed and cleared his throat. "Ahem, why is it taking so long?" "Sir, most of the growth hormones needed for the blood spirit fruit can be extracted from refined ores. However, the spiritual energy in this region is extremely scarce, and it is an essential growth hormone for the fruit. Thus, the growth cycle is significantly prolonged." Qin Feng suddenly understood. After a moment of thought, he instructed Xiaolong. Xiaolong dispatched 20B drones to search for areas rich in spiritual energy and conduct a safety assessment of the target zones. "Roger that, sir." Qin Feng stood up at that moment, gently ruffling Yang Dai's hair with a smile. "Girl, you've worked hard lately. I'm giving you a day off and taking you into the city. Are you coming?" Yang Dai's eyes lit up. "Of course I am, but..." "But what?" "Teacher, the city isn't like the village. Everything costs money there, even a drink of water." Qin Feng let out a hearty laugh, pulling a cloth pouch from his trouser pocket and pouring out a handful of golden beans, each the size of a soybean. "A few days ago, the mining robot struck a rich vein of gold ore. They refined 100 gold beans, each weighing 5 grams. It's not a fortune, but it's enough to keep us well-fed and carefree." As the 50 mining robots descended into the mine one after another, they resembled a colony of ants exploring the earth in all directions. Equipped with advanced detection tools, they could not only gauge the metal content of various ores, but also detect subterranean life forms, allowing them to steer clear in advance. In this way, all sorts of needed metals were smelted and extracted, fashioned into various metal ingots to serve as raw materials for the subsequent construction of manufacturing bases and various weapons. Gazing at the gold beans in her teacher's hand, Yang Dai picked one up and marveled. "Teacher, you're truly omnipotent. This single gold bean could buy hundreds of caddies of rice and flour, enough for us to feast on white rice and steamed buns at every meal." Qin Feng chuckled lightly. "You really have no ambition. What's so special about steamed buns and rice? Follow me, and from now on you'll feast on meat and fish delicacies from land and sea every single day." Yang Dai lowered her head and muttered, but I just want to eat white rice and steamed buns. All right, this time I'll buy you a mountain of them, so you can have them every day from now on. Go ask your grandfather if he wants to come to the city. We'll leave right away. Got it. Yang Dai scurried off to find her grandfather. Her grandfather Yang Huaiyan was in plant growth room number 4 using Qin Feng's laboratory to grow vegetables and fruits while also cooking their meals and tidying up every day. When Yang Dai arrived at the plant growth room, Yang Huaiyan was crouched in front of a pot clucking in astonishment. Seeing his granddaughter approach, he exclaimed, "Your teacher is truly remarkable. These green beans were planted just the day before yesterday, and they're already full-grown today. In a bit, Grandpa will boil some for you to eat." The green beans Yang Huaiyan had planted hadn't undergone domestication breeding, so they couldn't mature in just an hour or two. However, the complete plant growth system here could drastically shorten the growth cycle of various plants. Green beans that would normally take a month to grow could now be harvested in just 2 days. For Yang Huaiyan, who harbored a deep affection for the land, this place was nothing short of paradise. He reveled in it every day, delighting in the joy of the harvest. "Grandpa, don't bother boiling them. Teacher says he's taking us into the city." Yang Huaiyan's eyes sparkled and he smiled. All right. Wait for me, you'll go grab a few things." When Qin Feng saw Yang Huaiyan and Yang Dai again, he found Yang Huaiyan carrying a sack over his shoulder and Yang Dai holding 2 gourds. "Huh, what's all this?" Yang Huaiyan smiled, sheepishly opening the sack and the gourds. The sack was filled to the brim with dried green beans while the gourds contained black quinoa. "Hee, Mr. Qin, this is what I've grown over the past few days. I used your magical device to dry them. I'm planning to sell them in the city this time and buy you and Dyer a couple of winter cotton-padded jackets." Qin Feng couldn't bear to refuse the old man's kindness. He stepped forward to help carry the sack of green beans, and together they headed to the central elevator boarding the Cloud Dragon. It wasn't Yang Huaiyan's first time aboard the Cloud Dragon. He had ridden it once before when they moved here. Yet boarding the vessel again, he still found everything remarkably novel. Qin Feng went straight to the cockpit while Yang Dai, Yang Huaiyan, and Da Huang stayed in the lounge. The little dragon remained at home, occupied with gene editing and domestication breeding of the blood spirit fruit. Along the way, Yang Dai dutifully explained the functions and uses of various devices to her grandfather. Yang Huaiyan was astounded to discover that even this modest lounge could play music, show movies, host games, offer therapy, and provide massages. In particular, a farming game in the virtual reality system deeply captivated the old man's heart, and he was somewhat reluctant to leave when they disembarked. "Mr. Qin, this game can really be paused, right? Just now the system warned me that the corn I planted had attracted the covetous attention of some insectoid civilization, and they would attack my farm in 10 minutes, urging me to upgrade the defense system." Qin Feng couldn't help but hold his forehead, sighing helplessly. "Don't worry, it's already paused. Your corn will be fine." That's good. Qin Feng stopped the vessel in a valley outside the city. The valley was a mere 3 or 4 kilometers from the east gate of Linjiang City. They quickly climbed to the top of a hill, gazing at the black city sprawled like a coiled dragon. Earlier, when Qin Feng had gazed upon Linjiang City from a height, he hadn't felt much. But now, standing close, he could truly sense the oppressive weight of the 50-meter steel-reinforced city wall. The city wall of Linjiang was constructed from enormous blocks of bluestone, its surface coated with a thick layer of molten iron. Along the top of the wall, a troop of cavalry mounted on creatures resembling a mix of horse and deer patrolled back and forth. Above the city gate, a general clad in black and crimson armor scrutinized the stream of people entering the city below. Qin Feng marveled inwardly. Each of the massive stones used to build the wall weighed tens of tons. Given the mechanical level of this place, transporting such stones would have been an immense challenge, let alone stacking them to a height of 50 meters. He wondered how it had been accomplished. Outside the city gate, 2 long queues had formed. Every person entering the city was subjected to inspection by the garrison troops. Qin Feng and his companions joined the line. Qin Feng craned his neck to look ahead, observing that the soldiers carefully examined each person's hands. What are they checking? Why do they look at everyone's hands? Qin Feng asked curiously. Yang Huaiyan also shook his head, indicating he didn't know. Just then, a woodcutter carrying 2 bundles of firewood in front of him turned back to glance at Qin Feng and explained, "I hear a major incident has happened in the city recently. A demon infiltrated and massacred the entire Zhao family in the north of the city, the very clan of the city lord's wife. They were wiped out overnight. That's why inspections are so strict these days, whether entering or leaving." Qin Feng, seeing that the man was knowledgeable, pressed further. "They're checking for demons, but why look at hands? Can you tell if someone is a demon from that?" "Of course. Even if most demons can take human form, the hands are the hardest to transform. Some have long iron blue nails, others have webbing between their fingers, and some haven't separated their fingers at all. They still look like hooves. That's why they check everyone's hands." "Brother, you sure know a lot." "Not at all. I just heard it from others. I've never seen a real demon myself." Qin Feng smiled, but he happened to notice a woman in black robes and a veil in the adjacent queue. Upon hearing the woodcutter's words, she shot him a vicious glare, then surreptitiously glanced at her own hands. The woman's reaction was actually quite ordinary. Many people upon hearing the story couldn't help but look at their own hands. Qin Feng didn't think much of it, and soon dismissed the matter from his mind. He looked back and saw a troop of iron-armored cavalry riding elk escorting 3 carriages as they approached from afar, stirring up a cloud of dust. Move aside, move aside. A burly dark-faced man at the lead cracked his whip with a sharp snap, scattering the crowd waiting in line to enter the city, clearing a wide path for the carriages behind. The soldiers originally tasked with inspection all halted. When the group drew near, the squad leader courteously stopped them. Please wait, everyone. By order of the city lord, all persons and vehicles entering the city must be inspected to prevent any more demons from sneaking in. The dark-faced man snorted coldly and cursed, you blind fool. You dare to inspect someone from the Ginseng Antler Chamber of Commerce. The squad leader looked troubled and smiled bitterly. Brother Tiger, I'm just following orders. The higher-ups have given strict commands. Everyone must be inspected. Please, Brother Tiger, do me a favor and don't make this difficult for me. As he spoke, he glanced toward the city wall. Brother Tiger followed his gaze and saw a general watching from above. Reluctantly, he said, fine, inspect away. Just make it quick. The squad leader hastily checked the cavalryman's fingers, not daring to handle them as roughly as ordinary folk by turning their hands over repeatedly. When they reached the 3 carriages, 2 of them each carried 4 exquisitely crafted dragon and phoenix-carved lacquered wooden boxes, each sealed with a strip bearing the Ginseng Antler Chamber of Commerce's mark. The last carriage was an equally refined passenger compartment. Seeing the seals on the carriage boxes, the squad leader was once again at a loss. He trotted up to Brother Tiger. Brother Tiger, could you open these boxes? I just need a quick look to see if anyone's hiding inside. Brother Tiger's face darkened, and he said gravely, you've got some nerve. I wouldn't dare tear that seal myself. Go ahead and try. The squad leader looked troubled, unsure what to do. Just then a calm male voice came from the last carriage. It was not loud, yet everyone below could hear it clearly. Qian, who opened the boxes. Let him report back and close the case. Yes, Immortal Lu. Qian, who addressed the occupant as Immortal Lu. He dismounted and opened the wooden boxes himself, revealing neatly stacked square jade containers. Inside were all sorts of priceless herbs radiating a spiritual light that seeped out of the boxes, forming a faint halo. The squad leader merely glanced inside to confirm no one was hiding, then hurriedly let them pass. After they had gone far, the squad leader wiped the sweat from his brow, turned to the waiting crowd, and barked fiercely, get your act together. Check every single one carefully. By the city lord's order, no one gets special treatment. This small incident did not hinder Qin Feng's smooth passage, but the 2 cartloads of precious herbs from the Ginseng Antler Chamber of Commerce did stir his interest. The allure of those herbs for him was like the appeal of a sightseeing ship full of aristocratic young masters and ladies to interstellar pirates. Shaking his head gently, Qin Feng dismissed the greedy thought. Setting aside whether he should do such a thing, that Immortal Lu was likely no mere decoration, probably a true celestial being. Even a half-baked sect menial like Mr. Han wielded such terrifying flying swords. He had no desire to test the true capabilities of a genuine immortal with his own life. Still, this underscored the formidable strength of the Ginseng Antler Chamber of Commerce. With enough money, he could surely buy many of the herbs he needed. Lost in thought, the trio and the dog passed through the 30-meter tunnel and saw a bustling, lively scene ahead. Street vendors hawked there where children frolicked, and played shops on both sides displayed eye-catching signs and banners, and a stream of diverse people brushed past them. Qin Feng found the local customs fascinating. Gazing at the crowded streets, he gleaned a general understanding of the situation here. First, Linjiang City was abundant in supplies and boasted thriving trade, reflecting competent governance and public order. Otherwise, such scenes would not exist. Second, he noticed many people wearing swords or even carrying bows and spears. Their gait, aura, and every movement revealed a foundation in martial arts. Some even gave Qin Feng a sense of wariness. Qin Feng was a second-level agility-type Gene soldier. During the second-level Gene soldier assessment, he had single-handedly fought 10 forest wolves and killed them all. These were 10 Siberian forest wolves as large as donkeys, possessing not only formidable individual strength and speed, but also remarkable teamwork and tactical coordination. Moreover, the assessment was conservative by nature. Qin Feng's actual combat prowess far exceeded that, and he reckoned he could handle 17 forest wolves without issue. Yet here on this street, he could easily pick out several people who made him cautious, a testament to the city's martial vigor and fierce folk spirit. Teacher, my grandfather asks if you want some buns. Yang Dai's voice broke Qin Feng's reverie. He looked ahead at a freshly steamed pot of buns and smiled, by a few to try. Sure. Yang Dai swallowed, took the money from her grandfather, and scampered off to buy the buns, with Big Yellow tagging along happily. Qin Feng spotted a bookstore, told Yang Huan to wait, and went inside to browse. Rather than browsing, it was more like pirating. Every word he saw was recorded into the chip in his mind, processed and stored directly in his cerebral cortex, granting him a photographic memory. The shopkeeper, seeing this young man in faded clothes flipping through every book, rapidly grew annoyed and snapped, "What are you doing? If you're not buying, don't mess around." Qin Feng was not offended. He took out a few gold beans and rolled them in his hand, asking, without looking up, "Boss, what kind of books do you sell here?" The shopkeeper's eyes lit up at the sight of the gold beans, and his attitude softened immediately. "We've got all kinds of books here: Taoist scriptures, Buddhist sutras, sages, classics, mountain classics, sea classics, exotic records, martial arts manuals, medical tomes, official histories, unofficial tales, and scholarly ghost stories. Tell me what you want and I'll find it for you." "Oh, do you have any immortal scriptures?" The shopkeeper's expression changed, but for the sake of the gold beans he refrained from throwing Qin Feng out. "This is a proper bookstore, not a street stall. I don't have any of those shady immortal scriptures. If you want those, try the roadside vendors." "Then what rare treasures do you have tucked away?" "With just these books, I doubt these gold beans will leave your shop today." "Hey, 10 books for a gold bean. Let me finish." Qin Feng was speechless. This shopkeeper was clearly sizing up his customers. Here gold was measured in leaves. A whole leaf weighed 1 tael, halved it became 5 qian, and when torn down to the size of a thumbnail, it was the smallest unit a hao. These scattered gold leaf fragments were melted and recast into gold beans. Though they could circulate, most were taken to money exchanges to be converted back into gold leaves. Thus all transactions here were priced in gold, leaves never by gold beans. The shopkeeper, eyeing the gold beans in his hand, deliberately withheld the true price, a fact later evident from his frantic attempts to cover up. Qin Feng had no intention of letting such a swindler off. He silently ordered Skylark to deploy 10B drones, which infiltrated the shop and lurked within. The 10B drones flew silently into the bookstore one by one and perched atop the bookshelves, waiting for the night when the shop was empty to copy and upload all the books to the Cloud Dragon. As Qin Feng exited the bookstore, Yang Dai handed him a large steamed bun wrapped in oil paper. Tastes good. Have you eaten?" Qin Feng chewed on the fragrant steaming meat bun, looking at Yang Dai. "Master, you eat first. I'll eat after you finish." "What kind of rule is that?" "Just eat." "Old Yang, you haven't eaten either, have you? Come try one." The three of them walked along eating. Yang Dai had 2 buns, but still felt hungry. Just as she reached for another, Qin Feng stopped her. "Girl, don't eat too much. Just have a little to tide you over. Save your appetite. It'll take you for a feast later." The trio and a dog roamed the city, purchasing various supplies, and even hired a horse-drawn cart for transport. Their purchases mainly consisted of various spices, vegetable and fruit seeds, as well as white rice and flour that Yang Dai loved. When they passed the Ginseng Antler Merchant Association, Qin Feng gave Yang Huaiyan 10 gold beans and instructed him to continue shopping with Yang Dai. He then got off the cart and headed toward the association's herbal medicine shop. The Ginseng Antler Merchant Association was situated directly opposite the city lord's mansion, occupying half a street in this bustling district. No one dared set up stalls there, and the road was kept spotlessly clean. The association's stores dabbled in various trades, all following a high-end premium route. There were shops selling exotic delicacies from land and sea, the finest restaurant in Linjiang City, as well as silk shops, herbal medicine stores, weapon shops, jewelry stores, money exchanges, escort agencies, and more. Additionally, the association operated casinos, brothels, theaters, carriage services, pawn shops, tea houses, and inns on another bustling street. The carriage and horse deer that Qin Feng had rented came from the association's transport service. When Qin Feng arrived at the herbal medicine shop, he sensed something amiss. The moment he stepped inside, there stood the black-veiled woman he had seen that morning, clutching a cloth bundle stained with blood at the bottom. It looked like a human head. Opposite her was a blue-robed Taoist with graying temples, flanked by Qian Hu and 4 burly men. They all stared at Qin Feng in surprise. Qian Hu strode forward, grabbed the doorman by the collar, and slapped him several times across the face. "You useless fool. How do you keep watch?" The doorman felt wronged. No one had told him to guard the door. He had been serving customers inside. Realizing he had stumbled upon their secret, Qin Feng turned to leave. Qian Hu barked, "Stop." Qin Feng protested innocently, "I saw nothing." Qian Hu snorted coldly. "If you saw nothing, why run? You came for medicine, didn't you? Come with me to the back courtyard. We have all kinds of herbs there." Knowing this situation would not end well, Qin Feng tried to bolt out the door, but Qian Hu grabbed him by the back and dragged him inside. He then slammed the shop door shut and sneered at Qin Feng. The 4 other men charged forward, intent on capturing him. Cursing his luck, Qin Feng let the foremost man approach. The man threw a fist like a hammer at his face, a blow that could shatter an ordinary man's skull. Qin Feng's face darkened. Just as the fist was inches from his eye, he sidestepped, and as the man stumbled forward off balance, he drove a heavy punch into his ribs, sending him crashing several meters away, smashing a table before hitting the ground. The other 3 arrived, but Qin Feng tripped one, kicked another over, and when the last man hesitated upon seeing his 3 seniors felled in 2 breaths, Qin Feng didn't let him off. A fist met his face, and he collapsed backward into darkness. In the blink of an eye, Qin Feng had taken down all 4. The man he had tripped tried to rise and grab him from behind, But Qin Feng, as if foreseeing it, ducked low and threw an uppercut, sending the man flying backward, two large teeth, and a spray of blood arcing through the air. The blue-robed Taoist looked astonished. He hadn't expected the young man to be so skilled. His punches and footwork were exceptionally clean and practical, a style the Taoist had never seen before. The black-veiled woman had already slipped to the wall, her cloth bundle gone. Qian, who exclaimed with delight, "Impressive moves. Let me have a go." With that, he crouched, coiling his body like a spring, let out a tiger-like roar, and pounced at Qin Feng like a fierce beast. Qian, who was a martial artist at the peak of the Houtian realm, having mastered the dragon tiger force to perfection. His strength was immense, capable of lifting 1,000-gene millstone. Qin Feng felt a surge of killing intent. Qian, who seemed to transform into a real tiger, his unstoppable momentum chilling the soul. Humph! Qin Feng snorted lightly and floated back several meters like a falling leaf, evading the initial assault. A tiger descending the mountain. Nothing could stop it. Seeing Qin Feng retreat, Qian Hu's momentum grew. He charged forward, fists like cannons. Qin Feng grew furious. The man was fighting to kill, every move aimed at taking his life. Qin Feng had held back out of caution for the Taoist Lu Jinren, but the violence here was extreme, with lives casually threatened. Since that was the case, he would no longer restrain himself. His focus sharpened and time around him seemed to slow, a hallmark of agile-type gene warriors, a core change after unlocking the gene lock. When reaction speed reached a certain threshold, perception of time decelerated. Qin Feng swiftly moved behind Qian, who raised his leg high and brought down a heavy axe kick. Qian, who only caught a flicker of movement before a tremendous force struck his back, slamming him into the ground. The violent rebound wrenched a mouthful of blood from him. "I will kill you." Qian, who never having endured such humiliation, leaped up to attack Qin Feng again, only to be sent flying by an invisible force. The one who struck was none other than the green-robed Taoist Immortal Lu. Immortal Lu spoke calmly, "Enough. Stop making a spectacle of yourself." He then turned to Qin Feng with a cold smile and said, "The root of this whole affair is that you had too many eyes and saw what you shouldn't have. Be more careful in your next life." Immortal Lu raised his palm, and a bolt of lightning as thick as a thumb erupted from its center. The lightning moved with such speed that even Qin Feng with his reflexes could not dodge in time, and it struck him squarely in the chest. With a deafening roar, Qin Feng felt as if a high-explosive grenade had detonated within his chest. The terrifying shockwave hurled him backward, shattering the window frame and sending him crashing heavily to the ground outside. Immortal Lu let out a soft exclamation of surprise and leaped out through the shattered window. On the ground lay a pool of blood, but the young man was nowhere to be seen. How peculiar. This brat managed to withstand my palm thunder and survive. Could he be carrying some rare treasure? Qian Hu, quickly order your men to seal the city gates. We must capture him. Qin Feng had never imagined that a simple trip to buy medicine would land him in such a mess. It made him realize that this world had no rule of law, it was pure survival of the fittest. To them, killing a commoner was as easy as slaughtering a chicken. The electrical power in the lightning bolt Immortal Lu had fired was neutralized by the insulation layer of his nanoarmor. However, the concussive shockwave from the explosion nearly shattered his internal organs. If he had not already unlocked 2 levels of the genetic lock, granting him a physical resilience far beyond ordinary men, his organs would surely have been reduced to a bloody pulp. Suppressing the agonizing pain within, Qin Feng spat out a mouthful of blood and dashed swiftly into the crowd. The nanoarmor around his body rapidly transformed, taking on the appearance of an ordinary gray robe. Meanwhile, Xiaoming automatically sent a distress signal to the Yunlong. The Yunlong shot into the sky and sped toward Linjiang City, its black hull shifting to mirror the blue sky and white clouds above onto its underside. To anyone below, the ship seemed to vanish into thin air. Yang Dai and Da Huang also received the news of Qin Feng's attack and rushed toward his location. When they found him, Qin Feng was slumped against a wall in a narrow alley, his face a ghastly blue, his lips purple, and a pool of blood on the ground. Yang Dai glanced at the sky and called out to the cart driver, "Uncle, please fetch a doctor." The driver peered inside, then hurried off in search of a physician. But when he returned with the doctor, not only was the man gone, but even the goods on his cart had vanished. The doctor wiped the sweat from his brow and panted, "Where is he at?" The driver looked bewildered and muttered to himself, "Am I seeing ghosts in broad daylight?" It's one thing for a person to disappear, but how could an entire cartload of goods vanish into thin air? By this time, Qin Feng and the others had already been pulled aboard the Yunlong by its anti-gravity engines. Qin Feng was immediately placed in the medical pod, and the Yunlong quickly ascended, heading back toward the base. When Qin Feng regained consciousness, his injuries had stabilized, and he was no longer in mortal danger. Yang Dai held his right hand, tears streaming down her face, while Yang Huaiyan and Xiaolong were busy moving the purchase supplies into the base. "It's all right, child. Teach her what happened. Everything was fine when you left." Qin Feng briefly recounted the events, and then said flatly, "I used to think Linjiang City had decent public order. I never expected to run into something like this. Overhearing this, Yang Huaiyan seemed struck by a memory and said somberly, I recall that the girl's father was beaten to death by people from the Ginseng Antler Chamber of Commerce. Yang Dai looked up at her grandfather in shock. After a moment of stunned silence, she wiped the tears from her face and said through gritted teeth, One day, I will make them pay in blood. Qin Feng gently patted the girl's head. You're still young, child. You shouldn't carry such hatred. Your teacher will find a way to handle this. In the days that followed, while recuperating, Qin Feng spent his time reviewing the knowledge scanned from the bookstore by 10B drones. The bookstore contained over 7,000 books on a vast array of subjects. Due to the sheer volume of information, Qin Feng merely uploaded these books to the Yunlong's database for future reference without imprinting them into his cerebral cortex. During these days, he finally learned the written language of this world, no longer needing the aid of the intelligent translator. Additionally, from the Linjiang prefecture records, he discovered that Linjiang city was founded 3,000 years ago by 3 cultivation families. One of them was the Lu family, which backed the Ginseng Antler Chamber of Commerce. The other 2 were the Long family, who held the position of city lord, and the Wang family, who controlled the water transport on the Nine Falls River. In Linjiang City, the Long family held the most power, firmly suppressing both the Wang and Lu families, while the latter 2 were locked in constant conflict. Because the Wang family controlled the river transport, the Lu family feared they might sabotage their ships by secretly drilling holes in them. As a result, they always transported their most valuable goods by land, never by water. This was why, despite Linjiang City's thriving water trade, Immortal Lu had to lead a team on a grueling overland journey to transport rare medicinal herbs. Once Qin Feng learned this, he deployed the Cloud Condor to keep a constant high-altitude watch over the Ginseng Antler Chamber of Commerce's land transport routes, as well as the movements of Immortal Lu and Qianhu. One day, Qin Feng received a message from the Cloud Condor. Immortal Lu and his team had left the city. Judging by the shallow wheel ruts and the unsealed wooden crates, they were likely traveling with empty carts. Maintain close surveillance. Find out where they are going. Wary of the cultivators, Qin Feng refrained from deploying the B drones and relied solely on the Cloud Condor's high-altitude vigilance. According to the real-time footage from the Cloud Condor, Immortal Liu's party traveled south along the land route for about 300 li before finally disappearing into a dense forest. Even with the Cloud Condor's infrared thermal cameras and life detectors, they could not locate where they had gone. It was as if the group had vanished into thin air upon entering the woods. Additionally, the Cloud Condor captured footage of birds disappearing mid-flight as they passed over the forest, suggesting that the area was protected by a formation. Qin Feng speculated that this might be the Lu family's stronghold. Over the next 3 days, Immortal Liu's party never emerged from the forest, leading Qin Feng to wonder if there was another exit. Finally, on the 4th day, Immortal Lu and his group came out and returned along the same route. Judging by the ruts left in the ground, they were carrying a full load this time. Qin Feng stared at the footage from the Cloud Condor, lost in thought. He was assessing the feasibility of making a move against Immortal Lu along with the various possible consequences. His primary concern was his lack of knowledge regarding the true extent of Immortal Liu's power. If the man were not destroyed by the Cloud Dragon and instead managed to destroy it, his losses would be catastrophic. However, he soon recalled a detail. Previously, he had been sent flying by Immortal Lu and, enduring excruciating pain, had forced himself to hide within the crowd. After that, Immortal Lu charged out. He astonishingly failed to detect his trail. At such a close distance, Immortal Lu couldn't find him, so he likely wouldn't be able to spot the Cloud Dragon, which could attack from beyond visual range. Xiaolong de Huang, board the ship with me. The Cloud Dragon slowly ascended, training multiple weapons on Immortal Liu's carriage, which was 184 kilometers away in a straight line. Qin Feng gazed at the instrument panel, calculating the various weapon systems. He couldn't use heavy weapons with a large lethal radius. Even the weakest laser acceleration cannon would obliterate everything within 100 meters of Immortal Lu, including the precious medicinal herbs he was escorting. Among the 3 available light weapons, the Gatling laser emitter lacked accuracy. If it struck the wooden crates containing the herbs, it would be a tremendous loss. The shockwave generator was barely adequate for dealing with an anaconda, but he feared its power would be insufficient against Immortal Lu. Thus, the only viable option was the particle cutting beam. The particle cutting beam had one issue: in the vacuum of space, the craft remained relatively stable, and the beam's trajectory was consistent, allowing precise hits even on targets tens of thousands of kilometers away. However, in an atmospheric environment, factors like wind and gravity would inevitably cause the Cloud Dragon to tremble slightly. Even a millimeter of vibration would result in a massive deviation when the particle cutting beam traveled 184 kilometers. Solving this problem wasn't difficult. Move closer and land on a mountaintop to minimize interference, thereby enabling an accurate bay and visual range sniper kill. Xiaolong, I'm going to use the particle cutting beam for a bay and visual range sniper kill on Immortal Lu. Help me calculate the best sniping position. Yes, Commander. I recommend stopping on this mountaintop 206 kilometers away. This position is 30 kilometers from the sniper point, has sparse spiritual energy, and an extremely low probability of encountering unknown monsters. Additionally, this sniping position is directly behind the enemy's direction of travel, reducing the target's movement deviation, and firing from behind lowers the chance of the enemy sensing danger. Accepted. Navigate to the sniping point, and be sure to avoid passing directly over the target. Qin Feng issued the navigation command. The cloud dragon swiftly ascended and began to accelerate. Mach 1, Mach 2, Mach 3, Mach 9, approaching destination, decelerating. In less than 2 minutes, Qin Feng felt that the speed hadn't even fully built up before the cloud dragon began to decelerate and descend. As the cloud dragon slowly landed on the summit of this rocky mountain, the best firing countdown appeared on the front display. Countdown 3 minutes and 23 seconds. This meant that in 3 minutes, Immortal Liu's carriage convoy would enter his optimal sniping position. At that moment, Immortal Liu, seated in his carriage, inexplicably felt a growing sense of unease. With a flip of his hand, 3 copper coins appeared in his palm. He clasped his hands together, shaking the coins within. Immortal Liu muttered an incantation, and a crisp jingling sound came from his palm. Reveal. The coins scattered before him, and Immortal Liu's expression shifted slightly. Coin divination requires 6 tosses to see the complete hexagram. However, if the first, third, or fifth lines are yin lines, it is ominous. If the second, fourth, or sixth lines are yang lines, it is also ominous. His first line was precisely a yin line, an inauspicious start. The omen was not good. Immortal Liu then shook the coins 5 more times. Each result made his heart tremble. Ominous, ominous, ominous. All 6 lines were ominous. Immortal Liu couldn't help but collapse onto the carriage seat, a single thought echoing in his mind: my life is over. But when I visited Snow Mountain Immortal before the new year, he said I was destined for longevity, with no great calamity in my fate, and a lifespan of 800 years. How has it suddenly changed? Could it be that someone has disrupted the cosmic order, altering my destiny? Wanting me dead isn't so easy. Even if I die, he'll drag you down with me. A ruthless resolve hardened in Immortal Liu's heart. A yin thunder pellet was already concealed in his palm, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. He suddenly shouted, "Halt!" The entire convoy came to a stop. Qian, who leading the way, rode his horse to the carriage and asked through the curtain, "Immortal Liu, what's wrong?" "Turn back." "This?" I said, "Turn back." "Yes." "Everyone listen up." Reverse direction, return to Ziyuan Valley. As the convoy began to turn, a golden light shield slowly materialized around Immortal Liu's carriage, completely enveloping it. Qian, who narrowed his eyes, his gaze towards the surroundings, becoming suspicious and wary. Meanwhile, 40 li away, Qin Feng furrowed his brow. Why had Immortal Liu suddenly deviated from his intended route? "Commander, the target has deviated from the planned trajectory. Please advise." Lock onto. Immortal Liu launched the attack early. Received. Machines do not hesitate. Upon receiving the order to attack, the particle emitter immediately made micro-adjustments imperceptible to the naked eye. The next moment, a particle beam as thin as a hair shot towards Immortal Liu's carriage at nearly the speed of light, tracing dozens of Z-shaped trajectories within a single second. The golden light shield Immortal Liu had erected was effortlessly sliced open by the high-energy particle beam. Immortal Liu made no sound, but a spurt of blood splattered onto the carriage curtain. Qian, who seemed to sense something and glanced back. He witnessed a sight that would be etched into his memory forever. The carriage containing Immortal Liu was sliding backward in sections, revealing the cross-section of Immortal Liu's body within. SSS. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. Qian, who felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, his eyes wide with shock. After shouting the alarm, instead of regrouping with the other cavalry, he charged into the nearby dense forest. The remaining cavalry were also stunned by the scene. The Immortal Liu they had regarded as a deity had died silently in such a bizarre manner. Lord Qian Hu's voice jolted them from their shock. Just as they began to organize a counterattack, they saw Lord Qian Hu already vanishing into the woods. The men exchanged bewildered glances, then scattered in all directions, urging their dear horses to flee for their lives. Qin Feng paid no attention to the scattering cavalry. Instead, he selected Qian Hu, who had fled into the forest on the screen. The forest's cover proved meaningless under the surveillance of multiple detectors and the Cloud Eagle. Qin Feng gently pressed the attack button, and a silver-white ray struck dozens of times in seemingly random patterns. Qian Hu was still looking backward when he suddenly felt his hands go weak, unable to grip the reins, and tumbled off his horse. Falling to the ground, Qian Hu found himself completely immobile, unable even to turn his head. Soon a burning pain spread across his body, and he vaguely realized that the tendons in his hands, feet, and neck had all been severed by something. After confirming all threats were neutralized, Qin Feng piloted the Cloud Dragon toward the battlefield, hovering over 2 horse-drawn carts loaded with wooden crates. Particle-cutting rays sliced through the ropes binding the crates. The anti-gravity engine activated. The wooden crates on the carts began to float. The two horses felt their bodies grow light, their hooves kicking at empty air, and they neighed in panic, snorting and stamping. Soon they felt a weight return as they landed back on the ground, immediately bolting away, dragging the empty carts behind them. Qin Feng instructed Xiao Long to inspect the inside and outside of the 8 wooden crates, checking for any anomalies or devices like trackers. Sure enough, Xiao Long discovered that a square jade piece had been embedded in the bottom of each crate. These jade pieces emitted L-band pulse signals every dozen or so seconds, each containing hundreds of micron-level runes. Commander 8 square jade pieces emitting L-band pulse signals detected with micron-level runes inside. Awaiting instructions. Images of the square jade pieces along with signal frequency spectrums and the hundreds of micron-level runes were all displayed on the Cloud Dragon screen. L-band. Truly, technology and cultivation share the same ultimate goal. Record this information, then destroy the jade pieces and monitor the L-band signals. Yes, Commander. Following Qin Feng's orders, Xiao Long quickly recorded the signal frequencies and runes before completely destroying the 8 jade pieces. Subsequently, the Cloud Dragon flew to Qian Hu's location. Qian, who lay on the ground, his eyes darting fearfully around. When he saw a strange spatial distortion overhead, a look of confusion crossed his face. The distortion above was actually the Cloud Dragon's sky mapping technology used to deceive ground-level vision. While effective at long distances, it had significant flaws within 100 meters. Those below would notice a clear refraction effect. Qian Hu's confusion lasted only seconds. The distorted area opened a bottom hatch, and he soon felt himself and the surrounding earth and stones begin to float upward. What the hell is this? Help! Qian, who was sucked into the cabin where he saw a man and a dog surrounded by fantastical instruments. Who are you? Why are you taking me? Xiao Long ignored him, extending his right index finger, which visibly transformed into a syringe, a drop of transparent liquid at the tip of the slender needle. Stay away. Don't come near me. One dose of anesthetic was enough to fell even the toughest man. Qian Hu's voice grew weaker, and within 3 seconds, he was completely unconscious. Qin Feng lifted the Cloud Dragon, flying dozens of miles away before firing a laser as thick as a bucket at the battlefield. Within a 100-meter radius around the impact point, most matter was vaporized, leaving a semicircular crater on the ground. The mission had gone relatively smoothly. The obliteration of True Person Lu confirmed the Cloud Dragon's formidable power against cultivators, and capturing Qian Hu alive would yield valuable intelligence. Most of the fleeing cavalry didn't look back, but 2 clever ones chose to hide, perhaps hoping to spy on the truth or coveting what wasn't theirs. Every move they made was clearly observed by bee drones and Cloud Eagles. A laser gun barrel extended from the Cloud Eagle's beak, and 2 beams pierced the foreheads of the 2 cavalrymen. Thus the mission concluded successfully. Qin Feng not only avenged himself by slaying True Person Lu, but also acquired a wealth of rare medicinal herbs. Qin Feng assigned 4 bee drones to continue surveillance around the battlefield before eagerly returning to the base. At the base, Yang Huaiyan watched as the 8 crates from the Ginseng and Antler Merchant Association were brought in, asking uneasily, "This association wields immense power in Linjiang City, sir. They won't take this lying down." Qin Feng smiled. "Rest assured, Elder Yang. This was done discreetly, they won't find out. And even if they do, I'm not necessarily afraid of them." At that moment, Yang Dai was opening a crate to inspect the herbs. She had already been programmed with the 100 Herbs Classic Qi Nourishing Heart Sutra and 5-pill manual, and could identify every herb in the crate with ease. Wow, isn't this Earth Ganoderma? And Blue Dragon Ginseng, and Cloud Fruit too. Can we make awakening pills now? Qin Feng shook his head. I'm not aiming for regular awakening pills. Their probability of awakening spiritual roots is too low, they're of little use to us. What I need is a super awakening pill that can guarantee the most perfect spiritual root. That requires extensive work, theoretical validation, herb breeding, active ingredient extraction, 3 phases of experiments, and finally standardized production. Moreover, I believe the pill's effects vary by individual. Different people require different formulas. We need to analyze our own genes to tailor the perfect awakening pill for each person, unlocking the most ideal spiritual root. Yang Huaiyan listened, as if hearing a foreign language. He understood every word Qin Feng said, but together they made no sense to him. Yang Dai nodded thoughtfully. Teacher, what do you need me to do? First, you'll need to breed a large number of lab mice. Will require plenty. Second, the biological experiments must be completed entirely on your own. I have more critical matters to attend to. Teacher, you'll get it done. Yang Huaiyan finally found a chance to speak. Mr. Qin, what can I do? I'd like to contribute too. Qin Feng thought for a moment. Elder Yang, there is indeed an important task for you. Besides regular logistics, cooking, and such, I need you to help cultivate herbs. Yang Huaiyan looked bewildered. But all I know is how to grow vegetables. Don't worry, Elder Yang. Just follow Xiao Long's instructions. He'll select the right seeds, and you'll plant and harvest herbs like you would vegetables. Oh, I'm good at that. He'll get it done. After assigning tasks to old Yang and the girl, Qin Feng said to Xiao Long, implant the confinement biological chip into Qianhu, and then bring him to the interrogation room. I will personally interrogate him. Yes, Commander. The interrogation room Qin Feng referred to was actually a mine cave beneath their feet, some of which had been transformed into safe houses, some into rest areas, and one had been converted into an interrogation room by Qin Feng. The reason for not choosing to interrogate in the simulated space was primarily due to the limited computing power of the Yunlong ship, as the simulated space required significant computational resources, so Qin Feng planned to conduct the interrogation himself. As for Qianhu, Qin Feng had no intention of leaving him alive, so he decided to directly activate some of the more inhumane functions of the confinement biological chip, such as hallucination and truth serum. These functions usually cause irreversible damage to the target's brain nerves and are generally not permitted to be used without prior approval from the Human Rights Committee. However, Qin Feng had now arrived in another universe and was unable to contact the fleet, let alone apply for permission from the Human Rights Committee. Without the ability to apply for permission, how could he use these functions? It was actually quite simple. He just needed to initiate a level 1 response, after which Qin Feng would obtain the highest command authority of the Yunlong ship until the response was terminated or he was overruled by his superior officer. In the current circumstances, there would naturally be no superior officer appearing, so Qin Feng had effectively gained all permissions of the Yunlong ship. About 3 to 4 minutes passed, and Qin Feng, who was resting with his eyes closed, heard the sound of the door opening. Qianhu was carried in by Xiao Long and placed on the interrogation chair. Xiao Long secured Qianhu's limbs, waist, and neck with a belt to prevent him from slipping off the chair. After doing all this, he reported to Qin Feng, "Commander, the second prisoner, Qianhu, has been brought in. The confinement biological chip has been implanted, and the function test is normal. Please give instructions." "Go ahead, I will interrogate him." "Yes, Commander." After watching Xiao Long leave, Qin Feng turned to look at Qianhu, whose face was filled with disbelief. He could not believe that the true culprit behind everything was this young man. What was his identity? What forces were behind him to dare to kill members of the Liu family? Qin Feng remained silent and pressed the chip at the back of his head, bringing up the control system for Qianhu's confinement biological chip. Most functions in the system were displayed in light gray, indicating they were not activated. Once activated, they would be highlighted in green. However, the last dozen or so functions were displayed in red with a note stating no permission. Xiao Ming, initiate a level 1 response. Master, a level 1 response can only be initiated in extremely urgent situations, otherwise it will be subject to military tribunal. Do you confirm the initiation? Confirmed. Level 1 response initiated. Second Lieutenant Qin Feng, you have obtained the highest authority of the Yunlong ship. The previously inaccessible function buttons turned light gray, indicating they could now be used. Qin Feng glanced at Qianhu and without further ado directly activated the lie detection, hallucination, and truth serum functions. Qianhu, who was still in shock, suddenly experienced a strong sense of dizziness, causing him to fall into a state of confusion. After waiting for about 10 minutes for Qianhu's various indicators to stabilize, Qin Feng began the interrogation. Name, age, personal background. Qianhu opened his bleary eyes and answered drowsily. My name is Qin Sandog. I'm 31 years old. I was taken back to the Liu family by Liu Yan at the age of 8 and trained as an external slave of the Liu family. I practiced internal martial arts, Long Hu power, and mastered various forms of boxing and kicking techniques, achieving the perfection of the acquired stage. However, due to the absence of spiritual roots in my body, I have been unable to break through to the innate stage. Although Qianhu appeared disoriented, every word he spoke was clear and coherent, which was the power of the confinement biological chip. Qin Feng nodded and continued to ask, tell me about the Liu family situation. Qianhu said, the ancestor of the Liu family was a golden core cultivator. Over 5,000 years ago, just before his death, he returned to his homeland and established the Liu family lineage, becoming a hidden family in this area. 3,000 years ago, the Liu Long and Wang families, 3 cultivation families, together established Linjiang City. Initially, their relationships were quite good, but gradually they deteriorated. Though they maintain a facade of civility, now behind the scenes various dirty dealings are rampant. The Liu family has 26 generations living together with over 10,000 Liu surnamed members, among whom over 300 possess spiritual roots. The majority are at the Qi refining stage, with 28 at the foundation establishment stage, and only 1 at the golden core stage, the current head of the Liu family, Liu Rulong. In addition to the direct Liu family members, the Liu family has also been seeking ordinary people with spiritual roots for marriage or to adopt as sons and daughters. These external family members are the strongest force in the Liu family, totaling over 560, with 68 at the foundation establishment stage and 2 who have reached the golden core stage. However, after breaking through, they left the Liu family to seek their own fortunes. After hearing Qianhu's words, Qin Feng fell silent. He did not expect the Liu family's power to be so vast, which strengthened his resolve not to confront the Liu family heathen in the short term. While his strength was still weak, it was better to develop cautiously. Qin Feng pondered for a moment and asked the question that concerned him most. What is the source of the spiritual energy required for the many cultivators in these cultivation families? Qin Hu replied, I am not too clear about other things, but the Lu family has constructed a large spirit gathering formation that can draw in spiritual energy from a radius of 500 miles to supply the Lu family members for cultivation. Moreover, beneath the Lu family's Yuan Valley is an 8th grade spirit vein, and with this large formation, the spiritual energy inside is more than 100 times denser than outside. Qin Feng asked, what is a spirit vein? Qin Hu explained, this spirit vein, also known as a ground aperture, connects to the underground spiritual meridian. Originally, spirit veins were abundant in the wild with one every 1,000 meters, but after the spirit gathering formations of cultivation families were established, most spirit veins have dried up. Qin Feng continued, you just mentioned that there is an 8th grade spirit vein beneath the Lu family's Yuan Valley. Are there grades for these spirit veins? What about Ziyuan Valley? Qin Hu replied, Ziyuan Valley is the Lu family's hidden cultivation site. It is protected by multiple layers of formations. From the outside, it appears to be an ordinary forest, but inside it is a different world. As for spirit veins, there are naturally grades from 1 to 9, with the best being a 1st grade spirit vein and the worst being a 9th grade spirit vein. However, besides the 9th grade spirit veins, there are also some inferior spirit eyes in the wild, which formed after the spirit veins withered. As the two engaged in a rapid exchange of questions and answers, Qin Feng's understanding of this world grew increasingly clearer. However, Qin Hu, after all, was merely a servant of an outer surname in the Lu family, and the information he possessed was somewhat one-sided. Much of what he said, Qin Feng simply did not believe. For instance, when Qin Feng inquired about the mystical arts and divine abilities mastered by these immortal cultivation families, Qin Hu actually claimed that the Lu family could communicate with ghosts and spirits gathering the remnant souls of the deceased. Furthermore, he spoke of a prodigious disciple from the Long family who last winter subdued a cold flame within the Wanyan forbidden land, absorbed it into his body, and refined it into his primordial true fire. Hearing such extraordinary tales, Qin Feng naturally scoffed in disbelief. In his understanding, the soul was a conscious entity, an energy form bound by the physical body, unable to exist independently from the flesh. Therefore, the notion of soul summoning was utterly implausible. And fire was a plasma state of energy. How could it possibly be absorbed into the body? If it were, how could a person survive? Since the lie detector indicated that Qin Hu was not lying, Qin Feng speculated that this was likely a case of hearsay, or perhaps a misunderstanding born from ignorance. The interrogation of Qin Hu lasted for 14 hours. By the end, Qin Hu was mentally dazed and his speech had become fragmented and intermittent. It was then that Qin Feng suddenly received a real-time feed from the B drone. The image showed a group of people gathered around the large pit, where true person Lu had met his demise. Although the B drone was several hundred meters away, their whispered conversations were accurately captured after being processed and analyzed through special algorithms. Those wretched servants. When such a great calamity befalls us, they only think of saving their own skins. Not one of them returned to report the news. Indeed, if third brother hadn't happened upon one of them by chance, this matter would likely have remained hidden for some time. Third brother, what do you make of this? Could it be the Wang family's retaliation? No, the Wang family's merchant ships have been repeatedly attacked by water demons recently. All their men have been dispatched to the Nine Falls River to suppress the water demons. They simply don't have the resources to spare. Besides, they might not even know that affair was our doing. I suspect it was a passing celestial. But why would a passing celestial take an interest in such paltry goods? These herbs, though classified as profoundier, are all intended for mortals. Even Qi refining realm cultivators would turn up their noses at them. Why would a passing celestial make such a commotion over something so trivial? The group fell into deep thought. Then the one addressed as third brother spoke. Sixth brother, return and invite third uncle Zhou Xianli. Have him summon the remnant soul of ninth brother. Perhaps then we will know what truly happened. Very well, brothers, take care of yourselves. The one called sixth brother urged his spotted deer forward, galloping back toward the Lu family estate. Qin Feng listened with a furrowed brow, muttering to himself, could there really be a method to summon souls? But then he reconsidered, even if there is a way to summon remnant souls, what of it? True person Lu himself doesn't even know how he died. How could he possibly trace it back to me? Continuing to have the B drone closely monitor the scene, Qin Feng looked up at the dazed Qin Hu and decided to conclude the day's interrogation. Xiaolong, take him away. Let him rest and recuperate. We'll interrogate him again later. Rubbing his temples, Qin Feng began analyzing the situation at hand. For now, my top priority is to find a way to cultivate these profound tier herbs. The cultivation families are too powerful for me to provoke at the moment. It seems I can only attempt to occupy some spirit eyes first and try to grow these herbs. Occupying spirit eyes shouldn't be too difficult. The production lines for the new robots and weapons and ammunition are already complete and can be mass-produced immediately. I can dispatch robots to seize control of the spirit eyes. However, these are only temporary measures. The spirit eyes outside are too scattered and easily exposed, and I cannot defeat the cultivation families. The best course of action is to construct specialized large-scale drilling equipment to locate the spirit veins, Qin Hu mentioned. With this in mind, Qin Feng added a note to Xiao Long's memorandum, prioritize the manufacturing of large-scale drilling equipment. After making the note, Qin Feng felt a wave of fatigue wash over him. He sat down in his chair and dozed off for half an hour. Upon waking, he made his way to Laboratory 5. Laboratory 5 was the workshop for producing robots. With the diligent efforts of the mining robots, which had gathered all the necessary metals and minerals, the once rudimentary production workshop had undergone an upgrade, now capable of manufacturing qualified robot bodies. Xiao Long was in the midst of debugging the new workshop. Seeing Qin Feng enter, he paused his work and reported, "Commander, the new workshop will be operational tonight. It can then begin mass-producing the 2160 militia-class general-purpose robots." The 2160 general-purpose robot was the first generation of intelligent AI general-purpose robots produced by Zhihua Corporation on Earth in the year 2160. Its official name was Militia, marking a breakthrough that propelled humanity into an era dominated by intelligent AI robots. Although this classic robot had a cold steel exterior, its functionality was remarkably comprehensive. It could handle laundry, cooking, and cleaning with ease, and could also perform a variety of dangerous and complex tasks on behalf of humans with exceptional efficiency. Moreover, if these robots were equipped with weapons, they could instantly transform into combat units. Once this batch of militia robots was produced, they could be deployed for various tasks, including more efficient mining, large-scale cultivation, cooking, cleaning, base construction, and security. Qin Feng, how is the progress on weapon production? Xiao Long, given that we have not yet developed the capability to produce antimatter batteries, and the existing antimatter batteries are prioritized for production and computation, I opted not to develop laser weapons. Instead, I chose to produce more conventional kinetic weapons. Currently, prototype versions of 4 types of kinetic weapons are ready. Allow me to show you. With that, Xiao Long led Qin Feng to the newly constructed Laboratory 6, a small workshop dedicated to producing firearms and ammunition. This is the X-type silenced pistol. Its unique, sound-suppressing barrel combined with 5.56mm subsonic pistol rounds reduces the gunshot noise to just 7 decibels. Each magazine holds 20 rounds, operates in semi-automatic mode, and has an effective range of up to 300 meters. How could Qin Feng not recognize the legendary Nightmare pistol? It was the pinnacle of light kinetic weaponry, renowned for its silence. To put it in perspective, a person's soft whisper registers at about 30 decibels, so 7 decibels was practically a state of complete silence. Unfortunately, the laser pistol later emerged, which was completely silent, boasted a faster rate of fire, greater power, and a longer range, completely outclassing the Nightmare pistol in every metric. Qin Feng took the prototype pistol Xiao Long handed him. In his hands, the weapon was quickly disassembled into its components and just as swiftly reassembled. Xiao Long produced a box of bullets containing 3 colors representing 3 different models. "Sir, the current materials can only produce these 3 types of bullets. The yellow one is a subsonic round, the green one is an ordinary armor-piercing round, and the red one is a high-explosive incendiary round." Qin Feng said, "Excellent, that's sufficient. Equip each combat robot with 1 pistol magazine. The first 3 rounds should be subsonic, the middle 15 armor-piercing, and the last 2 high-explosive incendiary." "Yes, sir." "Sir, please take a look at this M96 fully automatic rifle. It's a lightweight automatic weapon that extensively uses aluminum alloy except for the barrel. Its advantages are lightweight, long range, and high accuracy, making it suitable as a primary weapon for various missions. This is the MF-05 anti-material sniper rifle, capable of executing sniper missions beyond 5,000 meters. Even at that distance, it can penetrate a 1-meter thick concrete wall. Finally, this is the QA-99 Closian weapon system with a rate of fire between 300 to 4,500 rounds per minute. However, it requires a stable mount, and due to a lack of chips, it is not fully automatic and needs a robot to operate." Qin Feng was very satisfied with Xiao Long's report. With these weapons, his robots could be armed to seize the surrounding spiritual eyes and mass-produce the herbs he needed. "Excellent. Reassign 20B drones and convert them into militia robots. That way, we'll have 70 robots. 10 will continue mining, 10 for daily tasks, and the remaining 50 will be armed. Form them into groups of 5, each equipped with 5 Nightmare pistols, 4 automatic rifles, and 1 anti-material rifle. Also produce more Closian weapon systems. Manufacture 20, no 50 units as reserves with 200 rounds per system." "Yes, sir." After touring Laboratory No. 6, Qin Feng instructed Xiao Long, "First, modify 1 group of robots and send them to occupy a spiritual eye to cultivate blood spirit fruits and verify the technology. If it works, we'll systematically occupy the nearby spiritual eyes. Each occupied spiritual eye will be equipped with a Closian weapon system, and 1 robot will be left to guard it." "Yes, sir." "Good, continue your work." He'll go check on the girl. Leaving Laboratory No. 6, Qin Feng headed to Laboratory No. 2. Yang Dai was busy injecting lab mice when she noticed Qin Feng's arrival and excitedly reported to him. Teacher, the verification of Earth Ganoderma's components is almost complete. It's mainly thanks to Brother Xiaolong. Based on previous blood spirit fruit data, he optimized the experimental steps and reduced the required biological experiments from 700 to 1500. Qin Feng smiled. That's nothing. As the database grows richer, the number of experiments will keep decreasing. Eventually, we may not need biological experiments at all, just AI simulations to obtain results that would otherwise require tens of thousands or even millions of biological experiments. That's not good. Why not? Wouldn't I lose my job? Don't worry. There will be more important tasks for you. As they spoke, Qin Feng accessed the experimental tasks assigned by Xiaolong and began working. Over the next 10 days, he spent most of his time conducting experiments with Yang Dai. By the third day, they completed all experiments on green dragon ginseng and cloud fruit. Xiaolong immediately assigned 130 rounds of experiments on 26 auxiliary herbs. By the sixth day, after all 130 rounds passed inspection, Xiaolong issued another 185 rounds of compound drug experiments. Qin Feng and Yang Dai worked tirelessly until the evening of the 10th day, finally uploading all experimental data. They anxiously awaited Xiaolong's final report. With a ding, Xiaolong's report was sent to both their chips. Exhausted and speechless, they each read the detailed 1045-page document. Qin Feng skimmed through the earlier sections, focusing mainly on the summaries of the 26 experimental stages and the final conclusion. In summary of the 29 herbs listed in the Spirit Awakening pill formula, only 15 show a positive correlation with spiritual root activation. Among them, Earth Ganoderma, Green Dragon Ginseng, and Cloud Fruit exhibit a strong correlation. Through in-depth analysis, 136 active components were extracted from the 15 herbs. By compounding them in a specific ratio, a compound Spirit Awakening capsule can be obtained. After 1 week of oral administration at the prescribed dosage, the probability of activating spiritual root cells reaches 94. 55. Mouse experiments revealed differences in the completeness of activated spiritual root cells. Higher completeness correlates with stronger affinity for spiritual energy. In the current experiment with 100 mice, the highest completeness achieved was 19.99, while the lowest was 7.56. Data analysis indicates that even with the current formula, optimized for individual genetics, the maximum completeness can only reach 19.99. To further improve spiritual root cell completeness, the Nourishing Spirit pill may be effective. It is recommended for the next experimental phase. Conclusion: to activate spiritual root cells with 19.99 completeness, the required materials are 685 grams of modified Earth Ganoderma, 356 grams of Green Dragon Ginseng, 245 grams of Cloud Fruit, 156 grams of Guizhong, 148 grams of Pale Ganoderma. After extraction of 136 active components and compounding in a specific ratio, 14 compound Spirit Awakening capsules are produced. Take 1 capsule on an empty stomach before breakfast and dinner daily. During the medication period, avoid food-derived drugs and consume ample protein, vitamins, and trace elements. Note 1: in mouse experiments, this drug caused severe adverse reactions in 3 of cases. No human trial data is available. It is recommended to conduct a human trial first to verify drug safety. When he saw that the probability of activating spiritual root cells was as high as 94.55, Qin Feng breathed a long sigh of relief. As long as he could activate spiritual root cells, he would have the possibility of cultivation. As for completeness and adverse reactions, he could address those later. Yang Dai also finished reading the report, her face flushed with excitement. She exclaimed, "Teacher, does this mean we can also have spiritual roots?" Qin Feng nodded. At least theoretically, there are almost no obstacles. Yang Dai asked, "Teacher, what's next?" "Research the Nourishing Spirit pill." Qin Feng replied, "Not yet. The first blood spirit fruit I planted will ripen tomorrow. You've worked hard these days. Rest well tonight. After the harvest tomorrow, extract the active components of the blood spirit fruit and see how effective this marrow cleansing process really is." During this period, Qin Feng was not merely conducting experiments. Besides continuing to extract intelligence from Qian, who he also dispatched batches of militia robots to purge the spirit eyes. The militia squads had now discovered and cleared 22 spirit eyes of their beasts. They first harvested the herbs growing within, sending them back to the base before standardizing the spirit eyes. This involved installing phalanx, Closian weapon systems, camouflaging the surroundings, excavating pits 5 to 6 meters deep, constructing cultivation platforms, injecting slow-release liquid fertilizer, setting up plant growth lamps, installing ion deodorizers, and negative pressure devices. Finally, they planted a herb seedling genetically enhanced by Xiaolong. Through research and calculations, Qin Feng determined that the spiritual energy concentration in the spirit eyes reached 2 liters per hour. The wild spirit herbs that once grew there utilized this energy at an abysmal rate of 2 to 5, with most dissipating into the air. By employing negative pressure devices to recover the dissipated spiritual energy, Qin Feng increased utilization efficiency to over 95. With abundant spiritual energy and genetically enhanced seedlings, the growth cycles of blood spirit fruits, earth Ganoderma, azure dragon ginseng, and cloud sky fruits were reduced from over 200 days to a mere 7 to 13 days. After each spirit I was modified, only one militia remained to operate the Phalanx CIWS, while the rest moved on to the next site. A 10-person squad was kept as a mobile reserve ready to rush to any attacked location for reinforcement. Over the past 10 days, aside from a few foolish lesser beasts, they encountered no cultivators. Qin Feng later found the answer to this puzzle through his interrogation of Qian Hu. In the eyes of cultivators, these wild low-grade spirit eyes were incapable of yielding useful herbs. They were akin to wild mountain fruits, either bitter or sour, often with a hint of toxicity. Given their exceptionally long growth cycles, the herbs were typically devoured by beasts before maturing, making the chance of obtaining valuable herbs vanishingly slim. Cultivators scorned them, and ordinary mortals dared not provoke the beasts guarding the herbs. Over time, these spirit eyes naturally fell into neglect. This turn of events, however, worked to Qin Feng's advantage, allowing him to amass wealth in silence. Seeing that the hour was late, Qin Feng returned to his bedroom and slept soundly. The next morning, Qin Feng and Yang Dai arrived early at Laboratory No. 2. A blue light flickered in their eyes as their contact lenses streamed a live feed of the militia squad harvesting ripe blood spirit fruits. Thanks to the negative pressure and ion deodorizing devices installed in the spirit eye, the rich fragrance of the ripe fruits did not spread, attracting no beasts. The entire harvest proceeded even more smoothly than anticipated. The genetically enhanced blood spirit fruit plant presented a scene of bountiful harvest, bearing 14 plump ruddy fruits on its half-meter tall stalk. Originally the size of pigeon eggs, the fruits had grown to the size of chicken eggs, resembling red persimmons. Through their paper-thin skins, one could see the slowly flowing pulp within. A brilliant red light emanated from the core, while a colorful halo trembled around each fruit. Witnessing this, Qin Feng and Yang Dai were overjoyed, filled with the delight of harvest and the satisfaction of seeing their hard work finally rewarded. Militia Unit 001 snipped each fruit with care and placed it into a preservation box. Militia Unit 002 uprooted the plant and replanted a new blood spirit fruit seedling. Militia Unit 003 performed soil cultivation, watering, and fertilization. Militia Unit 004 sealed the site. Militia Unit 005 maintained guard duty alongside Militia Unit 011, who was responsible for that spirit eye. Once the site was sealed, Mobile Squad 1 formed a triangular formation and, guided by the early warnings of Cloud Eagle drones, headed to exit No. 5 to return to the base. Qin Feng's base now had 8 exits, each not only extremely concealed, but also equipped with a multi-layered access control system combining defense measures, including camouflaged gates, omnidirectional surveillance, beast-repelling devices, and weapon systems. Soon Mobile Squad 1 traversed the 3,000-meter winding tunnel, returned to the base's interior, and delivered the preservation box to Laboratory No. 2. Xiaolong also arrived at the lab, guiding Qin Feng and Yang Dai in separating, extracting, and purifying the active compounds from the blood spirit fruits. An hour later, all active compounds from the fruits were purified into crystals and stored in various small vials. Final calculations showed they obtained 3,752 grams of blood spirit fruit pulp. From every 100 grams, they extracted 419 milligrams of blood spirit saponins, 95 milligrams of blood spirit flavonoids, and 23 milligrams of blood spirit polypeptides. Xiaolong combined these active compounds with those from several other mortal-grade herbs in a specific ratio to produce 30-tablet pills. According to Xiaolong's simulations, Qin Feng needed to take 2 tablets 4 times daily for 3 consecutive days. Though not the most efficient drug response, this regimen minimized side effects and adverse reactions. Given Yang Dai's younger age, lower body weight, and weaker liver and kidney function compared to Qin Feng, a second-tier gene warrior, she needed only 1 tablet twice daily for 10 consecutive days. The medication period also came with dietary and exercise requirements, primarily avoiding foodborne drugs and completing a set amount of anaerobic muscle training daily to aid absorption and response. With the newly synthesized tablets in hand, Qin Feng, Yang Dai, and Xiaolong took an underground tunnel to a gym 2 kilometers from the base. This gym was the spirit eye closest to the base, specially remodeled by Qin Feng for this medication period. It contained few pieces of equipment, mainly various sizes of dumbbells, barbells, horizontal bars, parallel bars, and an adjustable dumbbell rack. Qin Feng said to Yang Dai, "The next batch of blood spirit fruits can be made into slow-release capsules for your grandfather. Though they won't have the same effect as ours, they can still help strengthen his body." A flicker of gratitude passed through Yang Dai's eyes, and she whispered an almost inaudible thanks. Qin Feng nodded, took his tablets first with warm water, and Yang Dai followed suit. Xiao Long monitored both their vital signs in real time, ensuring timely intervention in case of adverse reactions, while also collecting data for verification and analysis. After taking the medication, Qin Feng began anaerobic exercises as advised by Xiao Long, including push-ups, squats, sit-ups, dumbbell training, and barbell deadlifts. Yang Dai followed behind Qin Feng, mimicking each exercise he completed. The master and apprentice, one large and one small, huffed and puffed as they lifted iron. During the training, Qin Feng gradually felt his lungs become scorching hot. With each breath he took, the temperature of his burning lungs dropped a notch, bringing him a great deal of relief. According to Xiao Long, at this stage the blood spirit saponin should be stimulating the bone marrow to generate blood spirit cells. Like red blood cells binding with oxygen in the lungs, these cells combined with spiritual energy in the lungs, thereby transporting the spiritual energy throughout the body. Sure enough, with each deep inhale of dense spiritual energy into his lungs, a mystical force surged into his body, triggering a cascade of chain reactions across his sinews, skin, bones, and muscles. Originally, Qin Feng could only deadlift 230 kilograms, but now he felt an inexhaustible strength coursing through him, making even a 300-kilogram barbell feel effortless. He gradually noticed that his entire skin had turned a deep crimson, resembling a boiled lobster. Turning his head to look at Yang Dai, he saw her skin had become a tangerine orange like a steamed crab. Xiao Long marveled, incredible. The reaction of blood spirit saponin with the human body is far more intense than with mice, and the effect is even better than anticipated. Your cell's metabolic rate is now astonishingly fast, and all your cells are undergoing a relatively safe mutation. This mutation allows your cells to integrate with spiritual energy more effectively, ultimately elevating your overall physical constitution through a qualitative transformation. Qin Feng, feeling quite uncomfortable as Xiao Long droned on analyzing the principles, complained, "Xiao Long, stop your chatter. I feel like I'm being cooked alive. Think of a way to make me feel better." Yang Dai wiped the sweat from her brow and panted, "Teacher, I'm suffering too. My whole body aches." Xiao Long tilted his head in thought, then snapped his fingers and said, "I've got it. 70 miles south, there's a mountain spring waterfall. Beneath it lies a spirit cold pool. The giant python that used to be there has already been dealt with. You two can go swim there. It should work wonders." Qin Feng dropped the barbell and urged, let's go. Hurry up." The trio quickly boarded the Cloud Dragon and headed to the spirit cold pool Xiao Long had mentioned. The Cloud Dragon landed beside the cold pool. Qin Feng and Yang Dai leaped into the water without a moment's hesitation. The bone-chilling water brought them immense relief, and all their pain seemed to vanish. Before long, they both began to feel a creeping chill. Xiao Long, monitoring their vital signs from the Cloud Dragon, transmitted a message, "I detect your body temperature dropping too fast. Each of you needs to take another dose of the medicine." The dosage Xiao Long had originally given them was already conservative. Even doubling it would still be within safe limits. Shivering from the cold, Qin Feng and Yang Dai quickly swam back to the shore. Qin Feng took 2 more tablets while Yang Dai took 1. As his lungs grew scorching hot once more, Qin Feng felt his body temperature gradually rise. Over the next 2 days, Qin Feng spent most of his time soaking in the cold pool, while Yang Dai only stayed in it for a third of each day. Qin Feng's originally flushed skin had now largely returned to normal. Through his contact lenses, he could also see his current condition. The most prominent indicator was blood spirit cell integration rate 98.58. In contrast, Yang Dai's cell integration rate was only 19.65. Qin Feng now swam back and forth between the 15-meter deep pool bottom and the surface. He could feel that his body seemed to have undergone a complete marrow cleansing and tendon transformation. The various theoretical terms Xiao Long used could not fully explain what was happening to him. Only one scenario closely resembled his current experience: breaking the genetic lock. The process of breaking the genetic lock was also a process of genetic mutation where genes became more refined and powerful, giving rise to special abilities akin to superpowers. When an agility-type genetic warrior broke the genetic lock, the ability they gained was superhuman reaction speed, not just in body but also in thought. The enhancement of both these speeds made it feel as though time around them had slowed down. The transformation brought about by blood spirit saponin was also a genetic mutation, one that oriented all his Bodhis cells toward a better integration with spiritual energy. He didn't know what a 100 blood spirit integration would result in, but he could already clearly feel a qualitative leap in his overall physical abilities: strength, speed, endurance, explosive power, cell recovery rate, cell growth rate, and so on. As he touched the pitch-black bottom of the cold pool once again, Qin Feng suddenly stopped and no longer swam upward. He closed his eyes, feeling waves of tingling numbness wash over his entire body. Inside the Cloud Dragon, Yang Dai looked nervously at Xiao Long. "Brother Xiao Long, what's wrong with teacher? Why has he stopped at the bottom? Has something happened?" Xiao Long was monitoring Qin Feng's vital signs. His blood oxygen saturation had dropped below 83, which was indeed dangerous. However, he didn't act because another indicator, the blood spirit integration rate, had reached 99. Sister Dyer, don't panic yet. Wait a little longer. Yang Dai nervously clutched Xiao Long's sleeve, her face etched with worry. Another 3 minutes passed. Qin Feng's blood oxygen saturation had dropped below 58. He remained motionless at the bottom, and even the 99 integration rate had not budged. Xiao Long still didn't move. Yang Dai was growing frantic. She shook Xiao Long's arm and urged urgently, "Brother Xiao Long, please go check on him. Don't worry. Look, he still has a heartbeat. He won't die." Meanwhile, at the bottom of the cold pool, Qin Feng's mind was already hazy. In his daze, he seemed to glimpse a scene from his infancy. Suddenly, a shiver jolted him awake. He took a sharp gulp of cold water and realized he was still at the bottom of the pool. Suppressing the urge to cough, he began swimming upward. As he burst through the surface, Xiao Long exclaimed excitedly, "It worked." Qin Feng coughed violently as he swam toward the shore. Yang Dai rushed out of the cloud dragon, running over with tears streaming down her face. Qin Feng knelt on the shore, his body ashen, unable to stop coughing up water. Yang Dai wiped her tears while patting his back. After a long while, Qin Feng finally caught his breath and slumped to the ground, panting heavily. Qin Feng turned his head to look at Yang Dai and comforted her in return. "Silly girl, what are you crying for? I saw your heart stop beating. I thought. See, I'm fine, aren't I?" Xiao Long is very clever. He knows when to intervene and when not to. What just happened was crucial for me. It was the key step to breaking through 100 blood-spirit integration. If he had pulled me out earlier, I might never have reached that level in my lifetime. Yang Dai said with tearful eyes, but this is too dangerous." "Don't worry, with Xiaolong here, it's not dangerous at all." Qin Feng smiled and pulled the girl back into the cloud dragon. Xiaolong approached and asked, "Now that the blood spirit transformation is 100, do you feel anything different?" Qin Feng closed his eyes, sensing the changes in his body. "I can perceive the presence of spiritual energy, but it passes through me like a fleeting visitor, never lingering. Well, aside from a qualitative leap in all physical attributes, there doesn't seem to be any other change." Xiaolong frowned, puzzled. "That shouldn't be. Let me take a blood sample to see what's going on." Qin Feng rolled up the nanoscale armor on his left arm and let Xiaolong draw a tube of blood for testing. Soon the results were ready, and Xiaolong ran back excitedly. "Commander, I simulated the genes after your mutation and discovered that your body now has a strong affinity and attraction for spiritual energy. You're like a spiritual energy pump, but without a spiritual root, you can't retain it for now. Furthermore, I suspect your current body has a certain immunity to cultivator's spells. Since spells rely on spiritual energy to activate and your body is highly compatible with it, some of the spell's energy would be absorbed by your cells. Finally, I found that with spiritual energy involved, your cell growth rate and activity have increased several-fold. This means that under the influence of spiritual energy, your wound healing speed would be astonishingly fast." After reading Xiaolong's report, Qin Feng silently verified the findings and indeed noticed that much of the spiritual energy actively passed through his body. Additionally, Qin Feng wondered, having achieved such an effect merely by consuming some blood saponin, was this constitution, tentatively called the blood spirit body, common in the cultivation world? And could the blood spirit body be further enhanced? When he sent these questions to Xiaolong, the answer came swiftly. "Theoretically, following my formula for consuming blood saponin would give a high probability of forming a blood spirit body, but in practice the likelihood is extremely low. First, a 100-gram wild blood spirit fruit pulp is 85 water. Of the remaining 21 grams, only 18 milligrams are blood saponin, with 70 of that in the pit. The pulp contains a mere 5 milligrams. To form a blood spirit body, ignoring the blood spirit alkaloids, you'd need 6900 grams of wild blood spirit fruit. Adding the catalytic effect of blood spirit polypeptides, that number doubles to 25500 grams. That wild blood spirit fruit earlier was only 30 grams, each, meaning you'd need 833 of them. But I calculated that 30 fruits would be a lethal dose for an adult. And even if someone had a warehouse full of blood spirit fruits, and through legendary alchemy extracted pure blood saponin, with 0 alkaloids and perfect ratios of blood spirit polypeptides and flavonoids, they might indeed form a blood spirit body." Qin Feng nodded, then shook his head. "But if the blood saponin content in blood spirit fruits is so low, how did people discover that they have the effect of marrow cleansing and tendon reforming?" Xiaolong shot Qin Feng a contemptuous sidelong glance, while Qin Feng looked utterly bewildered. "Actually, within a minute of your first dose, a mild cellular blood spirit mutation occurred. Given the absorption rate of the blood saponin, you effectively consumed a single 30-gram ripe fruit, yet you already felt intense heat and increased strength. Combined with the toxic reaction from the blood spirit alkaloids, your body expelled many black toxins, even in your sweat. It's quite normal for this to be mistaken for marrow cleansing and tendon reforming." Qin Feng gave Xiaolong an approving look. The little dragon's reasoning was sound and convincing. Just as Qin Feng was marveling at having developed his unique blood spirit body, Xiaolong suddenly spoke up. "Dyer's temperature has risen to 40 degrees. Are you sure you don't want to cool her down?" Qin Feng turned to look at Yang Dai, who was sitting on a chair. The girl had fallen asleep in her sorrow, and the blood saponin was still taking effect, pushing her fever to 40 degrees. Qin Feng quickly woke Yang Dai. She was groggy from the fever, pouting with a look of grievance as she walked out. 3 days later, Yang Dai, who was originally supposed to take the medicine for 10 days, had reached 98 blood-spirit transformation by doubling her daily dose. When Xiaolong handed her the last 2 pills, Yang Dai's face, which had been flushed, turned pale, as if she had thought of something. Qin Feng, who had been watching her, noticed the change and asked, "What's wrong? Are you scared?" In the past 5 days, Yang Dai had endured much suffering, which had made her much stronger. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something, but she finally forced a smile. "Teacher, I'm fine. He'll go now." Watching Yang Dai leave, Qin Feng felt a pang of sympathy. The girl was so young yet had to endure such hardship and now faced a life-and-death trial. It was truly difficult for her. After seeing Yang Dai enter the water, Xiaolong murmured, "She's very scared." Qin Feng glanced at Xiaolong and was silent for a long time before speaking slowly. "But we can't protect her forever. Someday she has to learn to face the world on her own. Though I wish that day could come later, much later." Silence fell over the cloud dragon. Suddenly, Qin Feng broke the silence. "Do you think I formed the blood-spirit body because of the massive adrenaline rush from my will to survive? If I gave her an adrenaline shot when she's at 99, would she be spared that danger?" Xiaolong looked utterly speechless. After a long pause, he retorted, "Even if that worked, what would be the point? Just to spare her some pain. With me here, she won't die anyway." Qin Feng pouted and muttered, "What do you know, you robot? This is a father's love for his daughter." Xiaolong had no reply, so he just rolled his eyes. Qin Feng focused on Yang Dai's vital signs. Her blood oxygen saturation had dropped to 90. 90 already. Why hasn't she broken through yet? Xiaolong's right hand twitched as if to strike, but his safety chip vetoed the action, or else a slap would have landed on the back of someone's head. Seeing Yang Dai's blood oxygen saturation drop to 88, Qin Feng could no longer stand still and wanted to rush out, but was stopped by Xiaolong. "Sir, if you go down now, you'll harm her." Qin Feng paused, then halted his steps. "Xiaolong, block her blood oxygen saturation and show me only her electrocardiogram data." "Yes, sir." 2 minutes later, Qin Feng watched as Yang Dai's blood spiritualization remained at 99, and her heart rate was accelerating rapidly. This was due to prolonged breath holding, causing reflex sympathetic excitation from the myocardium, making her heartbeat faster and faster. Qin Feng clenched his fists, his own heart nearly beating faster than Yang Dai's. At that moment, Xiaolong's expression turned grave as he suddenly shouted, "Go save her." Qin Feng's heart tightened, and he immediately dashed out. As he leaped into the cold pool, he noticed Yang Dai's heartbeat had vanished. "Girl, don't give up." Qin Feng sank to the bottom of the pool as fast as he could, embracing Yang Dai, whose long hair drifted in the water. As if sensing something, Yang Dai's heartbeat flickered once more. She opened her eyes to look at Qin Feng, then closed them again, uttering 2 words. Qin Feng made out that she said teacher. With a sigh, he held her and swam upward while Yang Dai tightened her arms around his neck. After bursting out of the pool's surface, Qin Feng brought Yang Dai to the shore and performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Within a dozen seconds, her breathing and heartbeat resumed. She lay on Qin Feng's lap, coughing out water from her lungs. Xiaolong brought her a spare nanoarmor from Qin Feng, which activated its drying function, quickly alleviating the cold. Back on the cloud dragon, Yang Dai hugged her knees like a child who had done wrong, hiding in a corner too afraid to look at Qin Feng. He was discussing with Xiaolong how to break through the 99 blood spiritualization. "I think failing once doesn't mean it can't succeed again. There must be another way." Xiaolong argued. "Cell mutations have a protective mechanism. To the Bota cell's mutation is not beneficial. After one experience, they quickly form immune proteins akin to antibodies. Attempting the same mutation again increases difficulty by 419 times in data terms. That's nearly impossible. Then find a way to knock out that immune protein." I refuse to believe it." Qin Feng frowned, pacing in agitation. Yang Dai bit her lip tightly, as if making a decision. Taking advantage of their distraction, she dashed out. By the time Qin Feng's mental storm subsided and he noticed it was too late, Yang Dai leaped, plunging into the cold pool once more. This time she was resolute: succeed or perish. Qin Feng followed closely, but when he tried to grab her, she pushed him away. Watching Yang Dai sink into the depths, without hesitation, Qin Feng felt a pang in his heart, understanding her resolve. Instead of swimming upward, he silently accompanied her to the bottom of the cold pool. In his eyes, Yang Dai's skin turned crimson and scalding again. She kept her eyes tightly shut and bit her lip, awaiting the moment of metamorphosis. Her consciousness gradually faded. After an unknown time, just as her heartbeat ceased once more, she suddenly saw a shooting star streak across the sky. "Teacher." It was the same star she had seen that night. As it crossed the heavens, she had made a wish for her parents to return to her side. Her parents didn't come back, but they sent her the best teacher in the world. "Girl, keep going." A voice jolted Yang Dai awake. She opened her eyes to see her teacher watching her silently nearby. Yang Dai grinned at her teacher a pure and radiant smile. Then she swam upward with her teacher behind her, filling her with immense reassurance. As she broke through the pool's surface, Yang Dai felt a crisp crack sound within her body, like something shattering or a lock opening. Are you sure you heard a crack? This was already the 6th time Qin Feng had asked Yang Dai on the Cloud Dragon. Yang Dai glanced at the equally helpless Xiao Long and nodded again. Yes, teacher, it was a very clear crack. Qin Feng scratched his head and looked at Xiao Long in disbelief. What's the probability of unlocking the gene lock without using genetic agents? I recall the textbook says 1 in 10 billion. Xiao Long added, to be precise, it's 1 in 35. For billion. Qin Feng pointed at Yang Dai. Then what's going on with her? If this were on Earth, wouldn't she be guaranteed admission to a gifted youth program? Xiao Long. I think she'd be sent directly to the military for secret training. Damn. Qin Feng couldn't help cursing, then paced back and forth in front of them. Yang Dai asked in confusion, Teacher, what's the big deal? Isn't it just unlocking the gene lock? Why such astonishment? Qin Feng stopped and waved his hand. Don't call me teacher yet, I might not be worthy. Yang Dai froze, tears quickly welling up in her eyes. Seeing this, Qin Feng immediately approached and explained, Don't cry, this is my peculiar way of praising you. I never said I wouldn't take you as my disciple. You'll always be my precious apprentice. No one can take you away. For the first time, Qin Feng learned that tears could flow backward. The teardrops at the corners of the girl's eyes actually receded, and then she broke into a smile, looking proud and charming. Xiao Long interjected, I've thought it over. Her unlocking the gene lock could be due to several reasons. First, she truly is gifted, a unseen-a-century prodigy on Earth. Second, this world's environment might aid in unlocking the gene lock, making it not so difficult. Third, the blood spirit fruit might have contributed. Of course, there could be other reasons requiring deeper research into her genes. Qin Feng nodded, that's true. But even if it's the latter two cases, it's still remarkable. At least it shows she'll go much further on this path than I will. With that, Qin Feng turned to Yang Dai and asked, Can you sense what type of gene warrior you are? Teacher, I feel two things in my consciousness, a ball of white light and a wisp of black smoke. I don't know what they are. Do you? Qin Feng was baffled and said, From what you describe, it's likely force, unique to intelligent gene warriors. But on Earth, there are only 4 types of force. The most common is telekinetic control of objects, then hypnotic force, the rarer prophetic force, and the rarest weather-controlling force. I've never heard of such a situation. Little Dragon, do you know about it? Little Dragon sank into contemplation. Upon hearing Qin Feng's words, he suddenly said, Commander, I believe that because the original universe lacks spiritual energy, many primordial forces cannot manifest. In this universe, however, spiritual energy exists, leading to the emergence of numerous primordial forces we've never encountered. Qin Feng blinked. As expected of a robot, your imagination is truly vast. Yang Dai silently sensed the origins of the two forces. Suddenly, she opened her eyes and said, Teacher, I think I understand what this is. What is it? Yang Dai wanted to articulate it, but found no precise word to describe it. After pondering for a long while, she finally uttered a single character, Jian, the between of time and space, yet not time or space itself. It is a force that allows all things to exist and also renders them into nothingness. Let's call it Jian. Qin Feng listened with a bewildered expression. I didn't quite get that, but it sounds formidable. Yang Dai tried hard to demonstrate, only to find the primordial force far too weak to be used, leaving her somewhat disheartened. Alas, this force is too weak. I can't show it to you, teacher. Qin Feng replied seriously, From your description, I'm not keen on seeing you demonstrate this thing. I'm afraid you might accidentally send me into nothingness. Yang Dai pursed her lips, troubled by the contemplation of her own primordial force. Qin Feng glanced at Yang Dai's examination report and found that she had indeed cultivated the blood spirit body. Thus the days of soaking in the cold pool could finally come to an end. The Cloud Dragon rose and flew toward the base. On the way back, Little Dragon reported to him on the cultivation status of the herbs needed for the Spirit Awakening pill. Little Dragon said, Commander, based on the current growth rate, the first Cloud Sky fruit is expected to ripen in 2 days. By then, all herbs will be ready for the first batch of compound Spirit Awakening capsules. Qin Feng asked, By the way, did you prepare the Blood Spirit Sustained Release capsules for Elder Yang? Even if we can't expect him to cultivate the complete Blood Spirit body, achieving 50 to 60% Blood Spirit transformation would still prolong his life and strengthen his body. Little Dragon replied, They are ready. However, even with the Sustained Release capsules, there are still some risks for Elder Yang. Should we first seek the Elder's consent? Qin Feng said, With you around, what risks could there be? Little Dragon answered, Though the probability is low, it doesn't mean there's none. Even the most advanced medical pods ultimately rely on the patient's own immunity and recovery. If the patient's immunity and recovery are compromised, we can only help them take the first 99 steps, but not the final one. The AI's risk warnings were always redundant rather than negligent. Qin Feng understood Little Dragon's point and agreed that they should indeed seek the Elder's opinion. When he returned to the base and spoke to Elder Yang about it, to his surprise, the elder refused to take the medicine, not because of the risks, but because he did not wish to prolong his life. To be honest, I've lived long enough. I don't understand why so many envy the immortal's eternal youth. I certainly don't. I've experienced too much in this life, and 99% of it was misfortune. The only reason I've held on until today is my worry for this granddaughter. I appreciate your kindness, but you should take the medicine back. Watching the old man turn and busy himself among the plants, he roughly understood the elder's meaning. For a happy person, living is a joy, and they can never get enough of it. But for those living in pain, life is hell. Many people criticize those who seek death from various standpoints, yet they utterly fail to comprehend the despair in their hearts. Qin Feng sighed for a long time before finally recalling a phrase to console himself. There is only one kind of heroism in the world: to see life as it is and still love it. 2 days later at noon, Qin Feng arrived at the interrogation room, holding a box of compound Spirit Awakening capsules. He looked at Qian, whose eyes were vacant, and felt a pang of guilt. There was a reason hallucinogens and truth serums were restricted. They severely ravaged the will, eventually destroying the personality, reducing a person to a soulless walking corpse. Qin Feng approached Qian Hu and placed a capsule in his hand. "Take it. Don't chew." Qian Hu dully put the capsule into his mouth, then sat with his mouth half open, motionless. Qin Feng handed him a glass of water. "Drink it." Qian Hu picked up the glass and drained it in one gulp, then froze in that posture. Qin Feng returned to his chair and suddenly asked with curiosity, "How much do you know about spiritual roots?" Qian Hu's expression was stiff, but his words flowed smoothly. "As far as I know, spiritual roots are divided into mortal spiritual root, profound spiritual root, true spiritual root, immortal spiritual root, and divine spiritual root. The better the spiritual root, the faster the cultivation speed. An ordinary mortal spiritual root would take at least 100 years to reach foundation establishment, while a profound spiritual root generally takes only 20 to 30 years. The path of cultivation only grows harder. If foundation establishment takes a century, the golden core path is even more distant. Thus, countless people seek ways to enhance their spiritual roots. Our predecessors have indeed discovered many methods to enhance spiritual roots, but the costs are invariably immense. Either extremely high risks or exorbitantly priced herbs. It is too difficult for humans to defy fate. Qin Feng thought to himself that the Spirit Awakening pill could activate, at most 1999 of a spiritual root's completion. Did that mean anything below 20 belonged to the mortal spiritual root? Could the nurturing spirit pill elevate a mortal spiritual root to a profound spiritual root? Qin Feng had a vague answer in his heart: probably not. The nurturing spirit pill might cultivate a 5 mortal spiritual root to 10 or 19 to 1999. But as for breaking through the bottleneck from mortal spiritual root to profound spiritual root, the more he thought about it, the less likely it seemed. Of course, Qin Feng's speculation was not final. He still needed to find the herbs for the nurturing spirit pill and verify the detailed data. Even if it couldn't elevate a mortal spiritual root to a profound one, it would at least improve the Cloud Dragon's database for future reference on enhancing spiritual roots. The nurturing spirit pill required 41 herbs, 5 of which were profound-grade cloud sky fruit, heavenly sun fruit, phoenix, tail, herb, 4-leaf, lord, and thyme. The rest were mortal grade. The cloud sky fruit required no further attention, and the thyme was among the 8 boxes of herbs seized earlier. Additionally, wild phoenix tail herb was discovered at Spirit I-026 and had been preserved for immediate use. Thus, Qin Feng still needed to find 2 profound-grade herbs, heavenly sun fruit and 4-leaf lord.